Seattle Seahawks, and we will get right into this one and talk a whole lot about what to look forward to here with the Niners coming home to face, for the first time this year, a second matchup with a division opponent, and an important one. I think everybody looks at every game now as almost a must-win for the Niners, certainly against NFC teams, and even more so against NFC West teams. Do want to address something here off the top. If you're a regular 49er pregame listener, and you have been for a number of years, or you're just a KNBR listener, I'm sure you know about the news on some of the changes at the station this week. But I just want to, for a minute, talk about John Lund, who's been a part of this pregame show. Dennis, since before I was here, you've worked with him for many, many years. He's an absolute pro, and it's really taught me everything I ever needed to know about doing pregame shows and postgame shows. I mean, I loved working with him. He kept it light. He was a lot of fun. And, of course, he's not dead or anything. He's just no longer with us here at KNBR. But we're going to miss him, man. John Dickinson has done an awesome job for us over the last year, stepping in here at KNBR, and it's just been, when we say super reporter, there's no, like, I wish we could call it something bigger because John does so much for us. But in terms of John Lund, man, we're going to miss him, and I want to make sure that's known and that's addressed, because I hate when stuff like this happens and people just act like nothing happened and you got to just move on and keep going. But we are going to miss John Lund here, and Dennis, I just wanted to give you a chance, man, if you want to say something out there. I'm sure John's up listening right now at 9 a.m. He can't get enough of this 3-hour pregame show. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, John, what a fantastic guy. When I came in, he opened up his arms to me. I mean, it's, I'm just an old football player. I'm not a radio guy. He is a professional, taught me so many different things, and getting to know him and his family. George coming. Oh, yeah. His former wife and his current wife, just getting to know those. I remember being back at what was it called? The fifth bore with him way back in the days.
You just did the remote shows, right?
Yeah. He's a great guy. I'm gonna miss him. Welcome to the team. You got big shoes to fill, but John, always a good guy, always a stand-up guy. Funny. I'm gonna miss looking out the window with him.
You guys, what people don't know is one of my favorite things in being here is I sit with my back to the TV. So John and Dennis are always, when they're looking at me here in the studio, they're looking above me because they're watching football above my head. I watch it on the computer here, but I also can see directly out the window. Every commercial break, these guys get up and they're looking out the window like, look at this guy here. What's he wearing?
Yeah.
What's this guy doing? What is this guy thinking right here with this big chain? But
a true professional. Yeah. I mean, a good guy. I wish him the best.
Yeah.
He's got so much talent. I mean, he's gonna find something, and I'm going to be watching him on TV or listening to him on the radio somewhere. So if you're listening, John, thank you for everything you gave to me. I appreciate you. I appreciate your family, and all the best.
Good deal. And then John Dickinson joins us now. He'll be a part of it was already a part of the pre- and post-game coverage, but you'll be sitting in the chair now, and you'll hear him at the halftime show as well when he does the breakdown of what's going on during the first half. But, JD, you've known John Lund for a long time. You knew him from back at the 95-7 days.
2011. I've known him a long time, and he is as professional gets, just best of the best. He knows the right thing to bring up in the right moment and the proper topic, and he does keep it light.
Yep.
And we've just had tons of conversations for over a decade, really a decade and a half, about the business and just different opportunities and things like. He's a mentor to me in many ways, and a big part of the reason why I've, at different points, looked to just stick it out in the business. So I love John Lund. He's the best of the best, and I wish him all the best.
They'd say your favorite center fielder was Willie Mays. I think some of your favorite radio hosts' favorite guy to work with or favorite host is John Lund. So a pro's pro. We miss you, John, and we will try to carry on what John helped lay for the foundation of what has become this 49er pregame show. Adam Copeland, the Super Bowl champion, Dennis Brown, and John Dickinson with you here live from Levi Stadium. So week 11 here. Dennis, I'll talk to you. We did this, John and I did after the Buccaneers game last week, the post-game show. But I've been asking everybody all week, a real nail-biter in a game that probably shouldn't have been a nail-biter. The defense, the 3 consecutive penalties, the 3 missed kicks by Jake Moody, which I'm sure you loved every minute of as a defensive player. Yeah. Debo getting into it. Again, that's stuff I think that just happens, but probably shouldn't be putting your hands on anybody's face or around their neck or anything like that. But just leaving that game, Dennis, did you feel better, worse, or about the same about this 49er team?
Well, I felt better because they ended up winning the football game,
exactly.
Right? I mean, you talk about those missed field goals. Those are things that keep you out of playoffs, right? I mean, if your special teams is going to fail, and there was that muff punt too. Those are the things that you got to improve on. And it's been kind of showing up the entire football season, right? Special teams. And I don't know how invested Kyle Shanahan is in his special teams, but I bet you he is now, because November, December is, those special teams breakdowns keep you out of playoffs. It was a, as far as a fan watching the game, you went through all the emotions, right? Up and down, even down to that last kick. And I thought that last kick hit the goalpost, but I guess it didn't. But it was still pretty close. So, I mean, I felt good coming out that game because they won the football game. It was a competitive football game, defense and offense, except for that the special teams play. It was a fun game to watch, and they ended up winning the football game. I mean, that's what you have to kind of do, right? You have to figure out how to win football games, especially on the road against a good team like the Bucs, and playing against a quarterback like Mayfield. So I enjoyed the game, but you got to get better. You got to get better in defense. You got to figure out how to stop the run. I haven't figured out how come they can't stop the freaking run.
It's been like 2.5 years since they've stopped anybody running.
And, that defensive front is not what it used to be. Hargrave's not in there, but still, you got to figure out how to stop the run. And today is going to be another challenge because they're going to try to run the ball. So you got to get better. You win the football game. You get consecutive back-to-back wins. I think that's huge.
First time this year they've had back-to-back.
First time, yeah.
So, and they needed a bye week in between, too.
Yeah, now you're week 11, and you got to bank some wins, and the road gets a little tough right now. I mean, you play some pretty good teams moving forward. So, you got to fix that special team stuff. You got to figure out how to stop the run, and you got to continue to be efficient on offense. So, I felt good leaving that football game, but it was tough to watch. I left after, when I thought it was going to go into overtime there where he missed that last field goal. I went outside. I was like, I can't watch it. I can't watch it because it was killing me. So it felt good, but you got to get better at a lot of different areas of the football.
Well, and for me, just being in Tampa, it felt like two teams that were in full-blown desperation mode to save their season. And the way that the game played out and being on the field as the Buccaneers were walking off and the 49ers are celebrating, and it's relief because of all the things that went wrong. You lose that game that way when you have so much invested. I think it has the potential to be season-altering in that how do you get back up off the mat to continue into Week 11? And the Bucs walking off, and it would have been the same thing had it been the 49ers. 49er fans grateful that it wasn't, but they just looked dejected. They've had a bunch of different close losses and the things. It was like left it all out there, feel like they should have won the game and didn't. And it was like, where do we go from here? And I think for the 49ers to avoid that feeling and get to 5-4 and win a second consecutive game, come home, division opponent that they've dominated, still sitting on the outside looking in, barely, but in not only the division, but they're 8th in the NFC right now, right there behind the Commanders as far as one of those final wildcard spots. So you try to use the momentum of figuring out a way to get that win, now get another one before it gets really tough with Green Bay and Buffalo.
Yeah, it is going to get tough when you go on the road here. And again, the NFC games are going to be the ones that are all the more important that they come out on top in. But to Dennis's point, I mean, the issues that they had into the bye week, I think, were things that we've talked about all season long. The ability, to close games, but a lot of it is the ability to close games on defense, get off the field on third down. They did that a little bit better, I thought, last week, but it's silly mistakes when a team is not putting anything together. I mean, you talk about the special teams play, Dennis, the muff punt there, and really it's a muff because Darrell Luter is the gun. Like, you got to get him, he's got to know when you get back towards the returner like that, you just got to get out of the way. You just gotta,
Didn't he have a Super Bowl? In the Super Bowl, didn't
that was Ray McLeod, wasn't it?
That was Ray?
Is that right?
Well, no, the ball hit Luter.
It hit Luter.
And Ray tried to pick it up.
Kind of tried to pick it up. He was indecisive on what he should do. But that's happened now twice with Luter. Cost you, I don't want to say that cost you a Super Bowl, among other things it did. But in terms of that game last week, like Baker and the Tampa offense hadn't done much of anything to that point. Then you set them up, they get their first touchdown drive and score. The other issues, red zone opportunities. They had 3 red zone chances last week, and Brock threw a fantastic on a breakdown scramble drill play, throws that dime to George Kittle, who makes an incredible catch back in the end zone. But again, that's a play that broke down. They weren't successful in the red zone. And when we talked to Kyle Shanahan earlier this week on our show, he'd said as much. He goes, I get mad at that, of course, when you miss kicks. But he goes, really, I get mad at myself because you start thinking, should we go for it here or should we not go for it? Then when you kick and you miss, you go, well, damn, I should have just gone for it then, right? I should have given myself an opportunity. And really what it comes down to is you're putting pressure on Jake Moody to make kicks. I know that's his job. That's what he's supposed to do. But when you don't finish, when you have opportunities and you don't go for 6, you don't end up with 6. That's the risk and the situation you put yourself in where it may not be as successful as it has been in the past.
Yeah, you don't want to be chasing a kicker that you may not have confidence in. You don't want, as he tries to figure it out, you don't want to all of a sudden, that kick that I would have let you attempt 9-10 times out of 10. Now I'm not going to do it. And then that messes with the confidence. And then maybe you don't get it. And then it just has the potential to fester into something bigger. So I think all told, the 49ers have to score more touchdowns when they get in the red zone. That takes the pressure off of everybody. But I think you can make the case from the Jake Moody standpoint specifically, given the 3 consecutive misses, but having it set up after what happened with Deebo Samuel to make the game-winning kick. I think in a weird way, you almost feel pretty good about his ability to
bounce back,
and now all eyes are going to be on Moody though for every kick here the rest of the way.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with what Deebo did, right? I mean, the reports where he just said locked in, you got to get locked in, right? I can't tell you how many times Ronnie Lott came to the defensive line and just yelled at you got to get pressure. You know, we can't cover these guys for 5 minutes. You guys got to get after it. I mean, I have no problem with leadership making folks accountable. Now, the problem was it was caught on camera, and then you put your hands up. That was, I mean, other than that, I have no problem. You know, you're going to a kicker that's missed 3. I mean, that was 9 points, you know, not on the board that you missed. Yeah, you score touchdowns, but kicker's there for not just to kick extra points. The kicker's there to kick field goals when needed, to put points on the board. But it was caught on camera, and then you see the hands go up. But I have no problems with leadership making folks accountable on the football field. And I think that builds character, too. You know, they kind of check you. You get checked a little bit. So I had no problem with that. And, you know, Moody, I mean, he comes back, his ankle, I don't know if it's full, but it affects the game, right? You just said it. It affects it. Do I go for it, or do I trust my kicker? And that changes the whole complex of the game if you're going to go for it, you know, when you're in the red zone. So.
And that's also when you win the game, you can get over everything that happened.
Yeah,
if you don't win the game.
That's a long flight home after saying lock in and then having a little physical altercation potentially.
How do you overcome it if you don't win the game?
I still think it was a long flight home for him. It had to be. As a kicker.
Oh, for Jake Moody? Yeah, of course.
I mean, for a kicker to miss 3 like that. I mean, in his range, and it wasn't like, 70-yard kicks. I mean, it was in his range. So, I'm sure this week, I don't know how kickers prepare or how they practice. I never saw him practice. They would leave before we got on the field. But I'm sure this week he's going to, you have to, as a professional, remember those 3 missed kicks and try to figure out what's going on.
By the way, I have people on the YouTube chat right now who have checked in, and we're streaming twitch.tv/thesportsleader, KNBR.com, and the KNBR app. Dennis has such bad lighting behind him. He looks like he's trying to be it's not your fault. It's the camera and the light behind you.
Am I not?
You look like you have a voice disguise, like you don't want to be identified here on the pregame show. The face and names have been changed to protect the innocent here, Dennis Brown.
Is it my skin color? Am I too dark over here?
It's the light right behind you. You look like a shadow. I don't want anybody to know it's me.
I don't like my shadow.
I don't want anybody to know it's my Jake Moody takes. Adam Copeland.
I can give it one of these. I put my hoodie on.
The Super Bowl champion, Dennis Brown, John Dickinson with you here from Levi Stadium. We got plenty more to come. We'll get some thoughts on what Week 11 could pose. By the way, all of a sudden we're hearing George Kittle unlikely to play today. We'll talk a bit about that next, and we'll get into some of the biggest areas for improvement for the 49ers. Again, from Levi Stadium, it's Week 11. More to come here only on the Sports Leader. From Levi Stadium, Week 11, it's game day. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, and John Dickinson with you. 49ers, what are they now, 5-4 after last week's win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'll ask you this first, JD, as we look at how this thing could shape up. How many wins are it going to take to win the NFC West? Because really, that's the path for the 49ers right now. And that's why today is such an important game. Every game now is important because you went 4-4 into the bye and you dropped 2 games. 2 division opponents who, by the way, now have come back and look like forces in the NFC West. We thought for a while maybe the weakest division in football, but based on what's happened with the Niners against the Rams and the Arizona Cardinals, you get Seattle today after you've beaten them once. You got to win today's game. I mean, it's all the more important. Can't be 1-3 in the division after this one. But based on what the Arizona Cardinals have done, Kyler Murray's playing the best football I think we've ever seen him play. They got better defensively. I think Jonathan Gannon's done a great job coaching that team. The Rams are always going to be a problem as long as Stafford and McVay are there. And then they got Puka Nacua back, Cooper Kupp's back. They're playing a little bit better. They're running the ball well with Kyron Williams. If you don't win 11 games, I think you find yourself in a bit of a situation where you're probably having to win some tie breaks that you're maybe out of your control beyond the end of the season.
I think they can get it done with 10 as long as they beat Seattle, the Rams, and the Cardinals on the final game of the year. That's Week 18 in Glendale.
Bought my ticket yesterday, by the way. I'll be there.
Nice. Yeah. Week 18 in Glendale, that could be for the division, and maybe you're in the playoffs or you're out. If if winner take all kind of a deal that gets flexed maybe to even Sunday Night Football. So be on the lookout for that. But I think it's 10 if you win all of your remaining division games, which you got to make up for the loss to the Rams and the loss to the Cardinals, and then make sure you don't slip up in a game like today.
Yeah, and the key is these divisional games, right? I mean, I remember the goal used to always be to dominate your division. And you lost 2 games. I mean, just think about those Rams and the Cardinals games that you lose early.
Tricked them away.
Man, I mean, if you had that right now, you'd be in the driver's seat.
We'd be doing this show with our feet on the table.
Yeah. So now you got to make up for it. You got to
be
make
talking
up
about
for it.
Can they catch the Lions?
Yeah,
seriously,
and be the 1 seed.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it coulda, woulda, shoulda. So, I mean, you got to win today, and you got to have that urgency, right? I mean, the rest of these games, you got to play. You got to play with big time urgency. I mean, you got to get after these teams. I mean, you have to start. You got to book some wins here, and it can't be win 1, lose 1, win 1, lose 1. You got to win these, especially in the division. And I watched the Cardinals play. Kyler Murray is playing like when he was a rookie, right? When he came out, so I think it's gonna be tough. We talked about that last game against the Cardinals. I mean, they're playing good football right now, and they got the confidence. The defense, the offense, they're playing really well right now. So I think it's going to be tough to catch them because I think they continue to win football games, surprising people. And the Rams, they've gotten healthy. So this division, very competitive. So you have to come into, especially divisional games, and you got to win these divisional games. So, 10 games at least.
And it's crazy when you look at where Arizona was when they were here on October 6th. They were 1-3. Yep. They were down in that game. They were about to be 1-4. They win that game. Lose the next week at Green Bay, but they've won 4 straight since. Took care of the Chargers, Dolphins, Bears, and Jets. So that win here really turned their entire season around.
Yeah, I mean, it was huge in terms of what it did for them in the division. Vaulted them up near the top of the division. And Seattle really kind of hit a skid after they faced the 49ers, and Geno Smith hasn't played nearly as well. I think the biggest concern, we've talked about this, it's red zone offense and it's third down defense. It's getting off the field on third and finishing scores and drives in the end zone. Now, last week, I will say this, and Dennis, when I asked you about you feel better or worse or about the same, one thing you can say is in closing the game with the offense on the field, I feel better about having to close the game with the offense than I do about having to close the game with the defense right now. Brock Purdy was fantastic on that final drive. Juwan Jennings was exceptional on that drive. And I really do think that on that final possession where he went 4 for 4, Jennings had some open room to run and stayed in bounds and had a couple of nice plays. Christian McCaffrey's presence was felt. And I don't think we have felt what the presence of McCaffrey is going to be offensively. Only 3 red zone chances last week. He didn't find the end zone. I feel like this is a week McCaffrey finds the end zone.
Yeah, you would think. I mean, you watch the way. I mean, you just see the way he works out. I mean, you always talk about getting in play-in shape. I think he's already in play-in shape. I think once he gets confidence, in the injury or supposed injury or soon to happen injury, whatever it was, the Achilles. I think once he gets that confidence in that, he'll go back to the Christian McCaffrey that we saw last year, the NFL's MVP, offensive MVP. So, JP Mason, he's played well. I mean, he's ran the ball well, but I think Christian brings something else to the table. I think defense is really focused on him coming out the backfield. We saw the play last week with that wheel route down the sidelines. Great catch. But I think he just brings something else to the offense. He opens it up for some reason because defenses seem to kind of focus on him when he's in the football game.
He's the most talented skill player that the 49ers have at his position. And he's like, I've said this a lot, he's like Steph Curry, to use the basketball comparison. He's just so good in so many different ways that defenses have to pay extra attention to him, or he's going to get off. And if you pay extra attention to him, then it allows anybody else to get open, whether it's Jennings or Kittle or whoever. What did you guys think of just his explosiveness, though, in terms of just like did it look the same to you? Did he look a step off? Is it rust?
I don't know. It looked the same to me, the way he runs the ball, the way he's able just to find his patience. That one cut. I mean, it didn't look like he was slow to, like I said, it's going to take him a while to get that confidence back, but his running, his catching was fantastic. His running out the backfield. I mean, he runs like he's ran last season. I was excited to see it. Those first couple runs, it was 8, 4, 5 pops, and he was up the field. He gets up the field. He gets to the second level real quick, and it looked the same to me.
You knew Kyle Shanahan was going to use him if he was available.
Well, that was the thing. Is I think last week we were asking, John and I were on the pregame show, and we were talking to Larry Kruger, and I kept asking everybody, what would surprise you about McCaffrey today? Because again, if he found the end zone twice, would anybody be shocked? No, it's Christian McCaffrey, right? That's what he does. But I think the usage was going to be the question. How many snaps does he play? What percentage of the snaps does he play? And I want to say he played like upwards of 80% of the snaps last week. Only 2 other guys had carries, and it was 1 apiece for Isaac Guerrero and for J.P. Mason. Guerrero went for, I think it was 1 carry, 0 yards, and I think Mason was 1 for 5. So they did not split it up. 13 total carries for McCaffrey last week. But it was 6 catches, so 19 touches, which is kind of where he lives, the 20 to 25 touch range in terms of how it is that they use him. You asked about the explosiveness. I didn't think anything looked off. Again, I don't think they had a great day in creating space for the run game for McCaffrey. Where you really I think you saw his explosiveness was in the receiving game. That one ball that Brock threw that was a dime, where he ran under it and he made it was like a 30-yard catch or something right in the second half. I think that's really where you saw it, and that's where I think you're going to see things open up a lot. Without Brandon Ayuk, and again, unlikely to play today, we'll wait for the final actives and inactives, but unlikely to play today is George Kittle. I expect as much out of the pass game for Christian McCaffrey. And again, if they're in the red zone, I think this is a week where he gets used because 18 of the 21 touchdowns scored last season came from inside the 20. He's just got a knack for finding the end zone, and I think that's where they're going to find the most success in using him.
And it was hilarious that he told Aaron Andrews on Fox that he wanted to play Christian McCaffrey more in the first half coming out for this halftime interview, even though he had only missed 4 plays.
Yeah,
but it was hot. But it was hot, so I kept him out all but 4 plays.
It was hot, so I give him a few snaps off, Dennis.
He admitted he didn't know the numbers and wasn't exactly locked in and running off the field.
That's Cal, though. He's going to run his running back. I mean, what do we always say? Over 30 runs a game.
That's what you want to get.
Where Kyle wants to be, and he's going to run those running backs. So you got to be, ready to run the ball, take some hits, pound and ground. That's what Kyle Shanahan wants to do.
How'd you guys think Brock Purdy played? Because I would say that while his numbers were fairly gaudy, like his passing percentage was pretty good in the game, over 350 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. I felt like eye test wise in the first half, he wasn't all that good. I felt like he was making a lot of high throws. There was a couple of maybe miscommunication plays where he threw to a wrong spot. Ricky Pearsall hit on a great crossing pattern where he ends up running for his first career touchdown. But the second half play of Brock, I think, is really, really where he started to shine because the numbers were there, I think, in the first half, but he had a lot of high throws, a couple of iffy, risky throws. And then in the second half, he really put it together. What'd you think, Dennis?
And it felt like you're right about the second half. Second half or the first half. The second half, it looked like kind of old Brock Purdy, right? The ball was coming out quick.
It was crisp.
He was being very decisive. He had some times. Brock's doing a lot of scrambling. I don't know if it's the offensive line, if he trusts his offensive line right now, or if he's just seeing something different. But he's running around more now. In the second half, it really felt like it was on time. Kind of when he came into it, it was just like, wow, that was a big thing. Brock Purdy, he's getting the ball out quick. He's decisive. He's throwing in these small windows, and that's what it felt like that second half of the Bucs game. That he was more, it was on time. It wasn't a lot of this running around, hoping something was going to open up. Even though he had that throw to George Kittle in the back of the end zone, but it would seem like it was more on time, more the Brock Purdy we've seen, the past years.
And the great quarterbacks, as he develops as a young quarterback, are able to make that adjustment to where, hey, maybe you are a little bit off at the beginning of the game, but as the game goes on, you settle in, and as your team needs you to make the biggest plays and the biggest moments, you have the ability to do it. So I think that's a real big picture as we all focus on Brock and the offseason and getting paid and already being a franchise quarterback, but he's going to be at another level of a franchise quarterback here as we go into 2025. And so the ability to just, shake off something that's a little bit off, keep your team in the game, and then bring them home by making those plays that needed to be made.
And you mentioned him getting paid. We'll talk more about this later, about Demo Lenore getting a contract this week. How about that? A 5-year extension for $92 million.
The hyena.
Is that what they call him? The hyena?
The hyena.
Why the hyena?
Is he a cackler? What's happening?
He's just always moving, always talking, always cackling. He's
chasing down wildebeest like in the Lion King or whatever.
Well, he's had his best season. I mean, all of a sudden, in training camp there was a lot of talk about him, and then it's kind of happened for him this season.
Well,
I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
He's run support. He great in coverage. I don't know if he leads the team in interceptions, but he's become that guy on the defense now who's making plays, on the run and the pass. So he's having a fantastic. What was his contract again?
5 years, $92 million. I think he's getting 18 and change a year is what it comes out to. He also, by the way, is now he was a 5th-round draft pick. He's the 6th highest paid corner in the NFL.
There you go.
And
work pays off.
Took DK Metcalf out in October. DK Metcalf, as he will do, ticked off on the sidelines.
They were getting into it. They were fighting with each other.
He took him out. And so that, Metcalf's been out. He's coming back today. That is something to watch this afternoon.
DK Metcalf off the injury report. He is going to play this week. The one bummer for the Niners is it's looking more and more like George Kittle will not play today. So Niners could be without George Kittle. Which means come on down. Who else are we looking at tight end there? I always forget who the other tight end is. Saubert. Aaron Saubert. There you go. We'll see what he can do today for the 49ers. McCaffrey back out there. He was good to go after last week. A little bit of soreness, I think they said, but nothing really to be concerned about. And Brock Purdy coming off of 350 yards, 2 touchdown performance with no interceptions. Come on down, Ricky Pearsall and Jawan Jennings, too. Could be a big day for those guys. Brock Purdy joined the KNBR Morning Show with Murph and Marcus earlier this week as our 49er Player of the Week, and we will have that conversation for you next. Adam Copeland, the Super Bowl champion, Dennis Brown, and John Dickinson with you here ahead of Week 11, 49ers and the Seahawks, only here on the Sports Leader. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champion Dennis Brown, and John Dickinson here with you from Levi Stadium. Niners and the Seahawks coming your way. A 1:05 kickoff. We'll be with you till about noon today. We'll hand it over to Greg Papa and Tim Ryan to take you up to and through kickoff. But every week on KNBR, on the morning show, we get a 49er Player of the Week, and after 353 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and a victory last week, Brock Purdy was the 49er Player of the Week, and they opened up the conversation with Marcus asking Brock how the arm was feeling halfway through the season after rehabbing all this offseason.
Yeah, and Brock, I remember last year down at 49ers training camp before the season started, we had the chance to interview you and talk about the rehab process coming off that elbow surgery in March. And speaking of the topic of taking care of your body, I'm just interested to see where the elbow's at now, how the arm is feeling overall. I mean, in baseball, when guys have Tommy John surgery, sometimes they're out for a year to a year and a half. So where would you currently say about the state of your arm strength and how you feel after that surgery last March?
Yeah, I feel pretty good. Getting through a whole year of throwing and then an actual off season to work on my arm and everything, it feels really good. It feels strong. It feels, back to normal. Everything just like how I felt before surgery. And so I feel really good with it. Always, working on little things with, arm strength and arm maintenance and all that kind of stuff, especially for the amount of throwing that we do as NFL quarterbacks. And so that's always going to be an emphasis for me in my career. But it feels 100% healthy.
So way better than last year, or what?
I would say it just feels just healthy in general. Just about the same. Last year coming off the surgery, and then as the season went, it would get fatigued here and there, and I would have to, really do some extra treatment on it and let it rest and recover. But now the recovery process of it, like after I throw during a week, it feels really good, like coming off a rest day. So. Yeah, it feels 100%.
Well, that leads to our next question, was obviously the arm must be feeling pretty good. To make that throw to Christian McCaffrey, Brock, what was that? That was crazy, man. Tell us everything about that play. Was there a degree of luck to that, or you had it all the way?
No, that's what we designed it up for, was that man coverage, have that linebacker go one-on-one with Christian when he bumped out there. And obviously he does like a little double move stutter and then heads up the sideline, and we had like a little protection issue. The guy got through, and for me, I was like, dude, we have the look, we have the matchup. This is exactly what we drew it up for against this coverage, and I just got to get this ball out to Christian and give him a chance. And so obviously there's a guy in my face, but for me it was all about throwing enough air on it for him to make his move and get under it, and we were able to connect on it.
So. Be honest, when you threw it, what was your then data input after that? Just lying on the ground waiting for noises, or because you didn't get to see it, right?
Yeah, no, I threw it in the air, and I'm like, all right, Christian, hopefully you can get under this, or at least be an incompletion and live to see another down. But then I heard everyone start going crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, he caught that.
Yeah, it's just one of those plays that seems like Christian McCaffrey can only make. And Brock actually wanted to dive deeper into the return of CMC. This is a guy that has been a huge part of your offense, and it's someone we've given a lot of comparisons to someone like Steph Curry from the Warriors. When you talk about the gravitational pull and the amount of eyes that he attracts from other defenders, just talk to us about what CMC returning to this offense means for the entire Kyle Shanahan system.
Yeah, it's huge. Obviously, he can do everything, run the ball, run routes from out of the backfield or line up as a receiver. Like, he just does so much. He's a little Swiss Army knife. And so defenses have to, scheme up Christian, and they have to have a plan to stop him. And honestly, that could be a good thing, just so it opens up other guys within our offense, getting Debo the ball, George, JJ, like all our other weapons. And so there's that component, and then just the things that he can do, man. We can throw in a little bit more design plays for him and things that we think can really expose the defense. And so having a guy like him in the backfield, lining up as a receiver, all those things, it just brings another component and level to our offense. So very, very thankful to have him back playing.
Yeah, and I would imagine more to come this Sunday against Seattle. We're talking to Brock Purdy, our 49er Player of the Week on the Yuma guest line. Happy to have him. So I asked you about the McCaffrey throw. The other big signature play was the Kittle. So, Next Gen Stats had you for 8.62 seconds. I wonder, kind of a multi-part question. A, how long is 8.62 seconds to an NFL quarterback? And then B, how did you and George find each other? And that's just playground Brock and George? You might as well be, we're in like 7th grade middle school lunch, just drawing that up?
Yeah, that's what it felt like. Obviously I was going through my progression and stuff, and George really wasn't in the progression. He was sort of just running off a guy for Christian to open up as my last guy in my read. And then, the Bucs just did a good job of zoning everything off and having guys in the windows. And so at that point, I was like, all right, I still have enough time, like, in the pocket here, and I'm going to just try to get outside the pocket and see who I can hit or try to run. And then sure enough, when I broke left, I saw George have leverage on the guy that was covering him. And I was like, all right, for right now, I can at least just get him a ball to the sideline, and it could either be him or nobody, and live to see another down. And sure enough, he came down, toe tapped it. But yeah, 8 seconds for me, man, like, without throwing the ball, it seems like a lifetime. And I'm like, this just doesn't seem right. I need to get the ball out of my hand. So yeah.
They're like, where's the pass rush? This is the NFL, man. What's going on here? So, by the way, was that based on social media? We get to see people's lives now. And we saw that you guys were all in beautiful Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So are we calling that the Jackson Hole Connection? Is that what it is now?
I guess so. We can call it that from here on out. Yeah. We had a good little bye week down there, so
that's
we golfed together. And
beautiful place to be, huh?
Gorgeous, man. It was a great little getaway for us to just go and breathe. It was a little colder and stuff, but get away from the season and just recover and be around some nature and mountains, man. It was awesome.
I got to imagine vacationing with George is an adventure.
Oh, dude, he's hilarious. Like, all he does is just talk really fast and have all these jokes and stuff, and I love being around him, man. It's a good connection that we got.
Yeah, and it seems like that chemistry between you and George continues to grow each and every week, but the chemistry overall from this entire team, and I want to talk about the newest member to this kind of chemistry mix, and that's Ricky Pearsall. Obviously, Ricky has had a few hiccups in his NFL journey so far, but this weekend you had the opportunity to throw his first NFL touchdown pass. So just talk to us about the journey that Ricky has and the chemistry that you guys are now building between each other.
Man, he's the toughest guy that I know, man. Just from, being drafted first overall, the expectations and the pressures of being a first rounder, my bad, not first overall, but first rounder, to then, coming in, learning our playbook and competing, and then going through a gunshot and, worrying about your life and then getting healthy and getting back. Like, dude, that is so much for a rookie and as a young human. And to then getting back and getting in our offense, and not just getting back, but just making plays, man, and, like, being a huge part of our offense. And for him to come in and compete and then have him get a touchdown like that and, break a couple tackles and reach for, the end zone, it was so special, man, just seeing him and his journey and his story, and for all of us to be a part of it and just watch him. And dude, he's inspired all of us, and he's got everybody in the locker room loves him and has his back. And so to see him do that and go out and have that kind of performance, man, was pretty special.
We had a lot of listeners say they got emotional, Brock. I mean, you guys are in the heat of battle, I know, but you ever think about that? That was emotional.
Oh, 100%. Like I said, just coming from getting shot in the chest to scoring an NFL touchdown a couple months later, like, that just doesn't even make sense. And that's Ricky Pearsall, dude. He's a tough dude and competitor, and he wants it and wants to show everybody what he's made of, and he's a special kid, man. I'm really, really excited to be playing with him.
You guys go back to high school in Arizona. It's really interesting. Speaking of just real life stuff, just I know you're a man of faith, and the Travarius Ward death of his daughter is so unspeakable. There aren't really no words. I mean, John Lynch and your pastor, Earl Smith, were down there. I know. I don't know, Brock, as a team, how you guys are going to rally, how you guys plan on just sort of loving him up. What have you guys said?
Yeah, man. I mean, everybody has, shot him texts and just told him that we love him more than anything, and that we're here for him, and no one has been through this kind of thing before, and we don't know how to act or react. We can't imagine how he's feeling. And so more than anything, we just want to, tell our brother, man, that we love him and that we're here for him, praying for him, and whatever he needs, that, we're here for him and we'll give him. And obviously giving him time and everything and what he needs in his life, it's way bigger than football. And so we all really don't know what to say or how to act or anything. It's just, we're just there for him, man. And so whenever he's ready to, come back, we're obviously going to be there for him and love him and hug him and everything. But, it's just a tough time for everybody.
Brock Purdy is the voice you hear this morning on the UMA Guest Line as our 49er Player of the Week. And Brock, I know you're in the middle of the season right now. You might not have the chance to kind of reflect on your journey in the NFL, but we're approaching the 2-year anniversary of your first NFL start against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and now coming off a win against the Buccaneers this past weekend. I'm just curious how you see your own development, but not just your own development, but the development and evolution of Kyle Shanahan's offense with you playing quarterback.
Yeah, man, it's been just crazy in general. From getting thrown in my rookie year and just trying to learn the ropes of the NFL and playing NFL quarterback, and then coordinators scheming you up and just having to be on top of every play, every moment, all the time, and not taking a breath to think that you've got it made. Like, you have to be on it all the time. And so that's something that I've learned over the last couple of years. And more than anything, how can I simplify the game plan in my mind every Sunday and just, not overcomplicate things or not overthink things, but in my mind, at the end of the day, just continue to be a competitor with a chip on my shoulder and trying to just play for my teammates, play for the guys around me. That's what football is. You don't want to make it more than that. And so that's something that I've learned over the last couple of years. And playing in Kyle's offense, man, I think he's, gained a lot of trust in me, and we've been able to, have some more answers and play calling going on. But we're continuing to figure each other out and learn with each other and grow with each other as we go. So
it's interesting you said coordinators scheming you up. So has it been harder this year? Because, listen, numbers are numbers. You can go whatever but last year you were at such an incredible level, almost an MVP level. They're almost down across the board. We were going through the stats. Part of that's McCaffrey. But is that coordinators scheming you up differently?
There's games, and there's a whole season last year of games where coordinators can watch and see what our tendencies are and how I play. And so there's always going to be scheming going on. But more than anything, man, I think it's just a mental challenge for myself to, like I said, keep things simple and not overthink things, but just play the game that I've always played and take what the defense gives me and try to find my answer within every play. And so I think that's just the challenge of it, man. The NFL, it's not easy. And that's why, you have so much respect when you see guys that have had success year after year after year, because, dude, it takes not only a physical strength, but just mental strength throughout all of that. So that's something that I'm continuing to figure out. But also, I love that kind of challenge. So that's just where we're at right now.
Really good answer, thoughtful answer. We appreciate all the conversation. I know we got to let you go. So we're going to ask the most controversial one at the very end here. I'm going to be that guy. In the octagon, Debo versus Tabor. Who you got?
Oh, man. I'm not answering that. I love both my guys, and man, everything's good. Kyle addressed the team, and we all love each other, man. We got nothing but brotherly love, so it's all good.
Those of us who've been around the league, we know this stuff happens all the time. Jesse Sapolo posted that it happened all the time in the Niners' heyday. Just wonder, does a guy like you're so cool, do you ever get hot? Does a Brock Purdy ever get hot?
Yeah. Dude, we're all competitors. We want to win. We want to do whatever it takes to win. And, if you don't have that edge or competitive nature in you, then honestly, I would question, are you, really made for the NFL kind of thing? And so everybody here has that. And across the league, I know everybody has that. But, in the heat of the moment, you just want to win so bad. And you want to help other guys, tell them to lock in or this or that. That's just part of the game. And so, that's what happened on Sunday, and then we get in the locker room and the whole team gets addressed that, we're all competitors, but more than anything, we have a real love and connection. We just want to win. So part of it.
We'll end it on this. Hey, man, it's the Seahawks. Nobody likes the Seahawks, Brock. Got to beat the Seahawks.
Yes, sir. That's it. We got to do our thing and play Niner football.
That's it, man. We do appreciate you. Always a great conversation, and we know you got things to do today. So thanks for hopping on with Murph and Marcus on KNBR, and go have a great day.
Yeah, thanks, Brock.
Sure. Thank you, guys. Go Niners.
We are back here at Levi Stadium. Adam Copeland, the Super Bowl champion, Dennis Brown, and John Dickinson with you here. Getting you ready for the 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks. Week 11 of the NFL season is upon us. We got plenty more to talk about. The 49ers, by the way, the big news this morning, waiting to check on the status of George Kittle, who they said, I believe the quote that John Dickinson gave us a minute ago was that they were not optimistic on Saturday night. And I said, oh, so they were pessimistic on Saturday night.
Yes, via Adam Schefter. Not optimistic that he'd be able to play against the Seahawks, but and making plans to be without him.
So we'll find out more about that as we get closer to game time. But time for Who's Hot, sponsored by Valley Heating, Cooling, Electrical, and Solar, locally and family-owned for 62 years. Somebody we have not spoken about yet. And I don't know that we'd say hot at this point, but Ricky Pearsall, first career touchdown in last week's game, and had a couple of big catches. They're going to need Ricky Pearsall to be hot, I would expect, especially no George Kittle today. You're going to have Juwan Jennings out there, Ricky Pearsall out there, Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield. But in terms of what you saw from Pearsall last week, how much more do you expect his role to grow? Because I think in recent years, like even with Brandon Ayuk, kind of got put in the doghouse after that rookie season. Deebo Samuel, of course, is going to be out there. I imagine he'll be a huge part of the offense today, especially if you don't have George Kittle. He generally is a big part of it anyway. But in terms of what you saw from Pearsall and his insertion into the offense, what'd you think last week, JD?
I thought he is continuing to get more and more comfortable with each week. I think the game's slowing down for him. They're working on the best ways to get him open and make him comfortable, and he is just a talent. And I think, the sky's the limit. And it really, with Christian McCaffrey back in the fold, Dennis, for me, even with Brandon Ayuk out, I look around the field and I say, wow, the 49ers still, with Pearsall, with Jennings, with Deebo Samuel, like they still have a lot of weapons. Kittle when he's healthy, CMC, like they still have enough weapons, I think, to make a run because he's been able to step in. And you can start to see, maybe he's not filling the void yet, but between him and Jennings, I think by the end of the year, he really will be filling the void. Yeah,
and I think you're right. I think he's getting more comfortable. Now, he's missed a big chunk of this season, because of, that the robbery and being shot. That sounds weird.
It sounds incredible to still say. He's been shot. Doesn't it still sound nuts to say? Like, he scores.
He's having just a normal rookie, he's getting better.
10 weeks after he was shot in the chest, the man catches a touchdown pass.
Yeah. So I think he's getting more comfortable. The one thing that you come out of Florida, he was a guy that can get separation, right? He's got that quick, those quick jerk movements that he can get open. We saw it last week against the Bucks. That was a great run after catch. But that's what he's known for. So he's got if George Kittle's not in the game, Brandon Ayuk's not there. He can be that deep threat because I think he has that ability to get that separation down the football field. Christian McCaffrey's going to open up everything for everybody. So I think you'll see Brock Purdy, especially without George Kittle, kind of looking at Pearsall as someone he can go to down the field to stretch the defense.
Well, he had the second most targets. I guess he was tied for third most targets. Deebo Samuel had 6 targets. He did have 4 catches, though, Ricky Pearsall, last week. 4 catches, 6 targets, 73 yards, and the touchdown, including the 46-yard touchdown grab, where he really put on the burners and beat his man to the end zone there. What kind of role do you anticipate for Juwan Jennings today, JD?
I think he's going to be the number one. I think, and he's shown his ability to be more than comfortable in being the number one when he's been healthy. We saw it immediately. You go back to what he did in L.A. and the 49ers' inability to win that game. He's just a stud. You talk about a guy who went from, back into the depth chart and working his way up, and then it's third and Juwan and all of that, and now it's first and second and Juwan.
By the way, Tom Brady's dropping that on TV now. You see that?
Yeah.
He was like third and Juwan. I was like, oh boy, it's bled through. It's now into like the public scope of what Juwan Jennings' nickname is.
And he's that guy though, right? He's got that attitude. He's he'll get after DBs. He loves to block, right? He's a receiver that blocks down the field and he makes those tough catches. And he got that nickname for a reason, because third down is when you need, a for sure receiver who's going to catch the ball in the middle of the football field, maybe take a shot. And he's been that guy. And he's had some injuries, but now he's back. And I think you're right. I think he's going to be the number one, kind of target. Especially on third down when you need those tough catches.
So big game today. I don't know that it's overstated that we keep saying must win, but it does feel like every NFC game, especially a division game, it's a must win. Would you have said, Dennis, that every division game every year is must win?
I think every divisional game, and for these 49ers, because you kind of those 2 games against the Cardinals and the Rams that you should have won. Now all these divisional games are super important.
Yeah, and I think especially considering what's ahead for the 49ers, going to Green Bay next week and then the Thanksgiving holiday and going to Buffalo after that. And then they do come home, but then they've got the Sunday, Thursday thing again with the Bears and the Rams. So it really is a gauntlet, the next 4 between the 2 trips and then the 2 home games that are going to happen within a span of 5 days.
And the way it stands right now in the NFC West, the Niners are in second place, 5-4, technically a half game back, I guess, of Arizona because they have not had their bye yet. They're 6-4.
Yeah, their bye is today.
Their bye is today, so the Niners will catch them in games. So if the Niners win today's game, still in second place because they'd be 6-4 then behind Arizona, who has the tiebreak. Now, my thought is that only one team is coming out of the West, but we will see how the rest of the NFC shakes out. That was a big loss for Tampa last week. Atlanta still holding on to the NFC South. Detroit at 8-1. I think everybody agrees the best team in the NFL, or excuse me, certainly in the NFC. And then Philadelphia, we got to talk more about them. 8-2 now, 2 games clear, but a game and a half clear of the Washington Commanders. Is Philly looking for their first? Do they have a bye today as well?
They played Thursday night.
That's right. So they're still a game off from Washington. So they've got a long week here. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Dickinson. We got plenty more to come as we get you ready for the 49ers and the Seahawks. Second time these teams are matching up. An important division game. We'll get more into it next, only here from Levi Stadium on the Sports Leader.
Saber Pepper will snap to Mitch Wisnowski. Number 4, will try to make it here. Good snap. Jake has it away. Jake has the distance, and Jake Moody is good! Money! Moody!
Wow.
Somehow, some way, the Niners win in Tampa Bay.
Wow. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Dickinson with you. That's how it ended last week. Money! Moody! I don't know how many people were feeling that way. However, Kyle Shanahan, and given some credit, and you should, to the final kick there made by Jake Moody. I know it's doing your job, but maybe no more pressure than anybody could have on them in that situation in a regular season game on the road after you've missed 3 kicks. And by the way, the guy who was kicking for Tampa last week, Chase McLaughlin, a guy who was a former 49er, and remember, he missed that kick against Seattle on the Thursday night
into
game.
the tunnle.
After Drake, he missed it. Made the tunnel. He missed the field goal post and the uprights. But that was the overtime game against Seattle a few years back, where Dre Greenlaw picked off Russell Wilson. Huge play against the sideline. Niners had a chance and could not.
8-0. And the Niners were 8-0. That was their first loss of 2019. But then they got it back in Week 17 when they went up to Seattle and won by an inch.
An inch, dude. The trot on the field of Marshawn Lynch, and we were all like, oh, boy, what's going to happen here? And then the Dan Buns-like play from who made the stop on that? Was it Drake Greenlaw in that play as well, dude?
Wow.
Pretty incredible. Anyway, Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Dickinson with you here. It's Week 11, Niners and the Seahawks. Seattle, by the way, floundering a bit, 4-5 right now. Though in division, 0-2 Seattle. They haven't played but 2 division games. They'll get the 49ers yet again today.
And the interesting thing about Seattle is Seattle historically handles Arizona. And they haven't played Arizona yet. So they've lost to the 49ers. They've lost to the Rams. And they still have a couple of games coming up against Arizona. So the Seahawks are going to be a team that the 49ers are trying to put in a bad way, while also maybe hoping that they can get a win or 2 against Arizona, because the recent history is Geno Smith, as bad as he's been against the 49ers, he's kind of owned the Cardinals the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Geno's not playing. I mean, early in the season, I think everybody was really surprised. I mean, the way Geno Smith was playing. I think he's kind of fallen off a little bit. And I think it's because of his offensive line, right? I mean, I think this is going to be a big game for this 49ers defensive line, because the Seahawks offensive line, they're not very good. I mean, they're giving away a lot of pressures, a lot of sacks. So I think Geno has digressed because of his offensive line, but he's going to throw you 2-3 picks every football game. So you got to win this takeaway game today. You got to get after Geno Smith, and he will throw you some gifts.
Yeah, Geno Smith, by the way, last time the 49ers played him, and we may as well make this our QB comparison here, sponsored by Friedman's Appliance, proudly serving all of Northern California with a wide selection of luxury appliances. Visit them in Pleasant Hill to see the Friedman's difference, and by Dolce Vita Tequila, pure and simple. Last time the 49ers saw Geno Smith, and I'll point out his numbers for you first. On the season, 68.1% passing, 2,560 passing yards, 11 touchdowns to 10 interceptions, and he's been sacked 28 times already this year. He has not been super mobile. In the first matchup against the 49ers, ready for this? He threw for 312 yards, 30 of 52. You heard that right, 52 passing attempts in that game against the Niners, 1 touchdown and 2 picks. And he threw a couple of interceptions. Ronaldo Green, Malik Mustafa, 2 rookies picking him off.
And a couple of huge picks.
Yeah.
I mean, momentum-changing picks with the Seahawks potentially trying to make it a game. That's been the story. The 49ers have been able to cash in turnovers, Dennis, against Seattle, and that's led them to victory.
Yeah, and you got to win the turnover game. I mean that's just elementary, right? I mean, you got to get after this quarterback, and you got to make him make some bad decisions. So, I think this game is won and lost in the trenches, like we say every single week. But I think it's important this week to really get after the Seattle Seahawks offensive line, shut down the run, and get after Geno Smith.
Well, they're one of the worst running teams in football. They do not run the ball effectively, which is tough because they've got a good back in Kenneth Walker. They throw to him a lot more than I think they'd like to, a lot of dump-offs to him, but they're just an ineffective offensive line. Their center retired midweek this week. I mean, they've had like a black hole at center there for the past 5 or 6 years. The O-line has been porous for them, and it's really been showing in terms of the times that a number of times that Geno Smith has been hit. Something that stands out to me, or that I remember from the first time they played this year, is Nick Bosa. I think they only sacked him 1 time in that game, but Nick Bosa had like 14 pressures. Remember the sort of game-wrecking ability of Nick Bosa there? I was thinking about this week because of what happened, and we didn't even talk about this, Dennis, the play with Baker Mayfield and Bosa on the sideline where they kind of pirouetted to the sideline and Bosa was holding him by the bicep.
Hands.
Yeah, he was like dancing with him.
Yeah.
It was like perp walking him to the sideline.
Yeah.
I need more from Bosa in the stat sheet. I know his impact on the game. I know Eder Gross-Matos, a big return today off of injured reserve. We'll see what the impact is. But in terms of what you're paying this guy and the defensive player of the year type prowess that he has, He's not wrecking games this year in the way that T.J. Watt can do it or that Myles Garrett is doing it. And I have him on that sort of pedestal. I've got him on that same level as those guys.
He should be.
But he's not. He hasn't been closing plays in the same way.
Yeah, and he's got support. I mean, we always talk about Nick Bosa getting chipped and he's getting double teamed. A lot of time it's one-on-one. And he's going to win most of the time, but you just don't see him pressuring quarterbacks like he used to. And you're right. I mean, the money, it always comes down to the money they're paying you, the big contract. I think he's probably one of the highest paid players on this football team. And you just want more out of him. You've seen it, so now you want to see more of it. So when you have those isolated situations, those one-on-one situations, you want to see Nick Bosa get to the quarterback. And he's getting there. He's getting there, but I don't think the sack numbers, I mean, we make a big thing about sack numbers, but the pressures are what you want to see more of. And I think last week and it blows my mind because Nick Bosa is a guy that goes 100 miles an hour. And on that play, it just looked like he was trying to push Baker Mayfield out of bounds, thinking he was just going to kind of give up. And Baker Mayfield, being the scrappy player he is, makes that play, that fourth down play down the field. If he just falls down, he can't make that throw. So, I mean, I don't know, kind of what it is, but you're right. You need to see more from a Nick Bosa. You need to see more of the Watt type of thing where third down and anything, you're in the backfield, at least get the quarterback off his mark. So, maybe somebody, and he's not getting doubled that much. He's getting chipped, but he's not getting doubled.
When we talked to Kyle Shanahan this week, we asked him about that. So what's going through Nick Bosa's head there? Can anything be going through your head? Is it just a reaction play because everything's happening so fast? But they ran together. It felt like for 9 yards.
Oh, they ran. Yeah. It felt, I don't know if he was tired. I mean, when I watched the play, I'm thinking, I guess he's thinking he's just going to run him out of bounds instead of, throwing him on the ground. But
what he said was, Kyle said that he asked Nick about it, and I guess Bosa's thought was, okay, I'm holding on to his bicep, and he thought he's probably not going to be able to get a throw off like this. And his other thought was, if I try to sort of do a hip drop tackle or just wrap him around, I've got to let go of him, is what Bosa told Kyle. I have to let go of him for a half a second to be able to try to drag him down from behind. He said, if I do that, he maybe gets that throw off. And my thought is, we got the throw off anyway. So,
what you do is you fall down and yank his shoulder out of play.
Exactly.
That's what I would think. If I had a quarterback by his arm,
just go down.
Just go down. You rip his shoulder, out of socket. I mean, that's what I would think. Just fall.
John Love was adamant about that last week. He kept saying on the postgame, why don't you just rip his arm out? Just rip his arm off. And I was like, okay, a tackle would have been fine by me.
He can't throw the ball if he's falling down with one shoulder.
I think the other thing with Bosa, too, is the hip injury. Like he is less than 100% right now, which I think has been kind of an under-discussed. He thought he could be out there and did make an impact on the game in Tampa, but he's really playing through it, and we'll see how he's able to do that again here in this one today.
Thoughts on Yetur Gross-Matos coming off the IR today?
Big. They haven't had enough pass rush from everybody, and I think a big part of it is the fact that they haven't had Yetur Gross-Matos. He was supposed to be a guy that they were going to mix in, and Leonard Floyd was going to get opportunities, and obviously Bosa was going to do his thing. And I think the depth overall, more on the interior because of the inability to stop the run has been an issue, but the consistent ability to get home hasn't been there. And I think that the Niners really like the trio of Bosa and Floyd and Yetur Gross-Matos, and they really haven't had it. So I think if he can come back, that's a real nice addition down the stretch here to be able to start getting home on some of these quarterbacks. And I think it's all the more important because the defense is vulnerable in other ways, right? It just because they're, until they get Dre Greenlaw back, are vulnerable, I think, at the linebacker spot in terms of tackling because of the interior against the run. Some inexperience maybe in the secondary at the safeties that can be taken advantage of from time to time. So I think the one thing is if you can get to the quarterback, it impacts everything else and makes everything else better.
And Sam, his last name, help me with his last name. Sam. There we go. He's been playing well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's been getting some pressures. I think he's got one sack this season, but I mean, he's a guy that's coming off that end, especially when Nick Bosa wants to flip and go on the other side. He's a guy that's been getting some good pressure.
Well, we talk about putting the pressure on Geno Smith to make plays. DK Metcalf is back today. We'll talk more about the matchup with he and Demo Lenore, who just got the 5-year, $92 million contract extension. The hyena. Self-proclaimed hyena, you said, right, JD?
Yes.
Nicknamed himself that.
Because that's his spirit animal.
Let's hope he's cackling in the face of DK Metcalf.
That's his spirit. Imagine that. Yeah, what's your spirit animal? Hyena.
Yeah, hyena, dude. It's like, have you ever seen a hyena in real life, sir? I don't know.
I don't know. What would your? I've never even thought about my
mountain lion.
Oh, that's easy though. Mountain lion.
Just yeah.
That's what you are.
I would. Yeah.
I am the king. I am the king of the jungle.
If you're asking me to pick one, mountain lion.
Yeah, I think I'd probably go. think for myself, I'll go Komodo dragon. I think that's it. Yeah, that really sums up who I am as a person.
There's got to be an app for that. You can put your.
I'm sure there is, dude. They probably do it by what you look like. You just take a photo and it tells you what animal you are.
Oh, jeez. I would be a bat, I guess, since you can't see me on the camera.
I think the lighting's a little bit better. I think we got you now, Dennis. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, and John Dickinson with you. We are going to catch up with our guy Matt Mayoko from the broadcast booth. Also, Leonard Krug will stop by in a bit to give us his thoughts on this one. We'll talk more about getting to Geno Smith because 22nd in the league are the Seattle Seahawks in yards per attempt on the ground. Only 4.1 rushing yards per attempt on the ground. They are going to try to go over the top today. Big deal that DK Metcalf is back. But they did a good job of shutting him down in their last game when they beat Seattle earlier this year. A must-win division game for the 49ers, and it all gets going at 105. By the way, and I'll bring this up a little bit later. We'll talk about this in terms of some of the injuries, but another special teams player goes down, your punter, Mitch Wishnowsky. Is he officially landed on injured reserve now, JD?
Yeah, he went on injured reserve.
Pat O'Donnell, the 32. I'm like, where has this guy been? What's this guy been doing for the last however many years? Pat O'Donnell brought up from the practice squad to be the punter. We'll talk about who the holder is today, too. You want to talk about special teams being a factor? It's supposed to be a little bit damp today. Could be raining a little bit later in the game. And you may not have Mitch Wishnowsky out there to even be the holder, or you won't have him out there to be the holder for Jake Moody. So I don't know, is it O'Donnell or is it Kyle Juszczyk? What would you guess?
Yeah, I think it's going to be O'Donnell. I mean, Kyle tipped that off that when you work punters out, at least the way the 49ers operate with Wishnowsky being the
I don't think
holder.
Kyle was there when they worked him out.
No, but you want somebody that can be a holder, and that factors into the decision, the fact that you'd be comfortable with your kicker being comfortable with him.
We'll get more into some of the areas improvement for the 49ers. Special teams certainly one. Third down defense improved a little bit against Tampa. Red zone, still a problem, but McCaffrey out there today, still waiting on the status of George Kittle, but 49ers per Adam Schefter were not optimistic as of last night. More to come here. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Dickinson. It's Niners and the Seahawks on the Sports Leader.
it's just nice to have Christian out there in every aspect. I mean, we got a bunch of good runners, and Christian's a great runner. So he had some good runs. The other guys didn't get too many of them. But in the pass game, it's just always a little bit different. You know, he pulls coverage to him. Brock and I joke, but it's almost like getting your blankie back because no matter what happens on a play, as a play caller, I always feel like, well, if it's not there, you got him at the end of the play just underneath, and you can go to him. And Brock, no matter where he's looking, trying to go down the field, trying to go somewhere, and a pass rush comes, you always can move to the left and find your little outlet that's sitting right there. When that outlet's Christian McCaffrey, it makes everybody a lot more comfortable, and it makes things a lot easier.
Got his blankie back, did Brock Purdy. Kyle Shanahan there earlier this week on KNBR talking about the return of Christian McCaffrey with 13 carries, 6 catches, 19 total touches in the game, and also was out there for like 80+% of the snaps. I think it was more than 85% of the snaps last week, which, by the way, we were talking Bosa last segment. Something to mention with him, too, is he's playing a much higher percentage of snaps each and every game. Last week specific, even in the heat, than he has traditionally over his career with the Niners here. And I know that Chris Kacerek is big on this, and they've been big on this over the last few years about defensive line play, playing like 74 to 75% of the snaps, because then you can keep guys fresh. They've just not had either the talent or the health to be able to do that and rotate guys as much as they would like. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Dickinson with you, getting ready for the Niners and the Seahawks. By the way, Niners have beat Seattle 6 times in a row. With Arizona on a bye, the Niners can gain ground of the division here, essentially bury the Seahawks for the season, eliminate a team that's going to be problematic potentially for them in the second half here. But the Niners are facing Seattle coming off of a bye. 3rd time this season they're facing a team coming off of a bye. They will have 4 of those total, which just doesn't seem right. Just doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, Buffalo, right? I believe
Buffalo
is the other one.
Too. Nice.
On Sunday night. So you're going to Buffalo on Sunday Night Football 2 weeks from tonight, and they're coming off the bye after you're coming off going to Green Bay the week before. That's
a tough one.
That's a tough one.
And it's going to be a cold one in Green Bay, I'd imagine. Dennis,
I mean, that's the big. I mean, I don't know the bye. It's just the weather. I mean, being from the West Coast. I mean, I'm sure some of the guys who are from the East Coast, but being from the West Coast, that cold used to hurt. I mean, it was a different kind of chill. It wasn't just. And it gets cold in San Francisco, but when you go to a place like Green Bay or anything back east, the weather's the big thing. That's the big factor. I don't know if it's the bye week, guys being rested, or guys coming back, but the weather is the big factor.
Is there a game that stands out in your career that you just remember, like, oh
in
my
Green
God?
Bay?
In Green Bay, yeah. I mean, my last NFL football game was a playoff game in Green Bay, and it wasn't snowing. It had rained a lot, and the field was very, very, very wet. But it was just cold again. And then once that that cold mud hits you, it was cold, and it was different cold, like I said. So, like I said, that affected us in that football game was just the weather. And I've seen a lot of Green Bay games. I played in the snow there, and it's just that's just different. It's just different, and the time change and flying across country, all that stuff. The weather is the big factor, at least for me, being a West Coast guy.
So your last game, that was 90, I guess it was 97, January of 97, the 96 season. That was a tough loss, dude, 35-14 at the hands of the Green Bay Packers. I was trying to get you a game time temp. I really want to see how cold this one was. Let's see. Oh, dude. You had it at 35 degrees, 17-mile-an-hour winds. The wind chill was 24.
Yeah, and we don't get that in the West Coast.
No.
So 24 degrees is what it felt like.
I don't know what the heck was going on.
Felt like 24, but just blowing in your face.
Yeah, and we were wearing all white that game too, so it was it was mud.
You had Gerbach that game, didn't you?
Gerbach, yeah, Gerbach. Wow, that brings back some memories.
Then he went to Kansas City, I think.
Kansas City, and haven't seen him since. After Kansas City, he disappeared. I mean, he doesn't come to alumni weekends. You don't see him at the games. He just poof.
Elvis Gerbach, he was the backup of my childhood. That's the way I think of it behind Steve Young. Did get a ring, though, 94.
He did.
So let me ask you this, Dennis, because we heard Kyle Shanahan coming in there talking about Christian McCaffrey and about how, some of the other guys didn't get out there. You mentioned Jordan Mason. Larry Kruger was a guy last week who was adamant, like, we just got to see more of those guys. I want to see more of Garendo out there. I want to see more of J.P. Mason. Do we ever overstate the change of pace back Like, when you're playing the defensive line, and obviously Christian McCaffrey is going to be more problematic for the D-line than anybody else you put out there. But is there something to a guy who bruises differently? I mean, you've always talked about Ironhead Hayward.
Yeah.
That was a guy you didn't want to see coming through the hole just because he would buck his head at you and get down and run through you. But in terms of, like, seeing different backs, does that really have an effect or an impact on the D-line?
Well, I mean, yeah. I look at Christian McCaffrey, and he's a guy that, we always talk about playing behind your shoulder pads. Let your shoulder pads lead, squaring the hole. But he's a guy that, for some reason, watching him play, the way he moves, the way he's able to kind of see a gap, I guess, see a run lane and then hit it like full speed. Defensive linemen, we like running backs that are going to dance a little bit, and then we can kind of corral around them. Christian McCaffrey, he's always run into the line of scrimmage. His pads are always square, and then that way he can move either way, left or right, laterally, either way. And those guys are hard to tackle. And I don't want to compare him to a Barry Sanders, but that's what Barry Sanders was. He didn't run sideline to sidelines. He ran up the field square, and then he would have those cuts, those jump cuts that would just throw you off because his shoulders are square. He can go either way. So Christian McCaffrey reminds me of someone like that. He's just hard to tackle because the way he runs, it almost looks like he's gliding. He's taking those steps and he's gliding and he's just kind of making those moves. And because his shoulders are always square, it's hard to determine kind of which way he's going. And he makes those cuts quick. And then, you're the highlight tape. So, and then what he does, as far as catching the football out the football field out the backfield is amazing.
And Isaac Guerrero, huge play at the end of the Seattle game.
He's had a couple of those, right?
To clinch it. Broke one and then went down. Could have gone in. Yeah. And, there was the joke, did he get caught? Should he have just gone in?
Well, don't forget, he would have been at 100 yards rushing. They ran into him one more time after that, and he lost a yard.
Right. And Kyle Juszczyk took his touchdown, too.
That's right. He stole the touchdown.
He ended up putting it into the end zone.
Call that a vulture is what you do. You vulture a touchdown there. So in terms of what they've got to do today, I mean, again, put the pressure, I would say, as always, on Geno Smith to try to beat you. He has struggled this year in terms of accuracy. His completion percentage not all that bad, but he's having to throw in the ball like 40, 50 times a game. He's been sacked so many times. They don't run the ball all that effectively. Kenneth Walker III, somebody to pay attention to because he is a weapon. If they get into the goal line or into the red zone, that's going to be problematic.
And even teams that don't run it, the Cowboys come to mind, like teams that don't run it well or don't stick with the run.
They're doing it against the 49ers.
They're doing it against the 49ers.
Well, because they're successful, right?
And teams, like, I don't care who you are, what your team situation is, good offensive line, bad offensive line. Teams look at the Niners when they're putting in a game plan, and they are confident that they can run on them even if they can't run against other teams. How do you combat that?
Yeah, and it's gonna be there until you defeat it. I mean, until you figure out you can defend it.
Yep.
And I think teams see that you can get on the perimeter. I mean, what as an offensive coordinator, if you can see it, on the defense, if you can get to the perimeter and straight up right up the gut, A/B gaps. That's what you're going to do because, like with the Kyle Shanahan offense, it opens up everything else, right? And offensive linemen like to run block. And if you're successful run blocking, they don't mind doing it all day long. They just lean on this defensive line and hold us and open up run lanes. So if you show that that's what you can be exposed, offenses always are going to try to run perimeter and straight up the gut, especially on first downs. And then second down, you can take a shot. Third down, maybe third and short, you can get that first. And then if you can't get off the field on third down, it really, coordinators see that and think, this is going to be a good game to have some game plans again. So you can scheme against defenses that give up the perimeter and also right up the gut. So you got to defend it. And for some reason, the 49ers have issues defending the run, and you got some good defensive linemen, but for some reason, you get schemed up and you give up a lot of gash plays.
What's funny about that is and we'd have to look at some of the big yardage or chunk plays that they've given up on the ground, but the Niners are 10th in the NFL in yards per carry allowed. They're only giving up 4.3 per carry. Seattle's only running it at 4.1 a carry. That's 21st in the league. Now, when you go to the flip side of things, Niners are like third best in the league at yards per attempt on offense. So they go over 5 or just about 5 yards a carry there. When it comes to defense, Seattle 26th in the league. They're allowing nearly 5 yards per carry. So run game could be a factor today if you can keep those numbers where they are. If the Niners can continue to be a top, I mean, that's the thing. Yards per carry, top 10 of the league is not all that bad, but we'd have to look at some of the chunk plays. Also, teams are not running the ball a ton against the 49ers. Their offense has been putting up a whole lot. Like when they've doubled up offenses like they did last week, that's the thing that was so frustrating about the Tampa game is they had like 200 more yards of total offense than Tampa did in general. They ran so many more plays than they did. They've been great at putting up yardage. They've been one of the top yardage teams in the league. So that's why I just sort of think if we can get that levy to break with getting into the end zone, these games can be runaway victories, and basically these run numbers just get suppressed entirely for the defense.
And then the defense is able to get a little bit more rest, maybe not being as deep as they've been in prior years or not quite as dominant. They need a little bit more margin for error. I mean, they've come up with a lot of big plays in key moments. I mean, the stop when it looked like Tampa was going in for the win there in the closing seconds or in the closing minute before the Niners were able to set up the Jake Moody game-winning field goal. So that they have been able to do it when they've had to have it. But if there's a little more margin for error because the offense is putting it into the end zone, I think it just looks completely different for the defense at that point.
Yeah, and on a defense, it's always if you can sit on the sidelines and watch your offense have a long drive and come out with 7 points. I mean, talk about a confidence boost. And then now you're really motivated to get off the field because you're going to watch your offense drive down the field again and get a touchdown. So, yeah, I mean, that changes the whole momentum of a football game, especially if you can go down and put some points on the board and not miss a field goal.
Let's get you the health report sponsored by the Alameda County Sheriff's Office. The Alameda County Sheriff's Office is seeking highly motivated people to join their diverse and growing law enforcement agency. Applied at joinasco.com. Injury report, the one we're waiting for big time today is George Kittle. Adam Schefter reporting this morning that 49ers are not optimistic, or they were not optimistic on Saturday night that he would be able to go. You mentioned something a couple of minutes ago, JD, in terms of Nick Bosa still dealing with that hip injury. Maybe that was a factor last week. And the hope is that Eater Gross-Matos being out there is going to help with some of that, take some of the pressure off of him and maybe allow him to do a little bit more. It's a big get back, I think, off of IR.
And the other part of the Schefter report was also including Trent Williams. And
who didn't practice the other day.
Yeah, didn't practice on Friday with an ankle, but Schefter wrote that the 49ers are more hopeful that Trent will be able to go than they are George Kittle.
And then we mentioned this one a little while ago. On IR lands another specialist. It's Mitch Wishnowsky lands on injured reserve. So Pat O'Donnell's going to be your punter today, 33-year-old former 6th-round draft choice by the Chicago Bears, spent time with the Packers. Niners had to sign him just in case with that back. Wishnowsky was unable to go. Broke my back, spinal. Little shout out to Mike Tyson there. Great fight the other night. So much fun. A lot of fun watching that. Anyway, in terms of the Seattle Seahawks, something to pay attention to, DK Metcalf is back off the injury list, or off the injury report for Seattle. So he'll be out there today as well. And Demo Lenore, fresh off the new contract, has an opportunity to try to shut down DK Metcalf again. He did not have an interception of Russell Wilson, of Geno Smith the first time they played, but Mustafa and Renardo Green both did. How have you thought Renardo Green has played this year? Mustafa's been fantastic. Renardo Green's been really good as he's gotten more opportunities. He's really lived up to the deal. Early on, you kind of wonder, okay, how are they going to use him? Inside, outside, Lenore, they'll move around. But I think as they've put more on Renardo Green's plate, he's been able to step up and be a factor and be somebody that you want to have where he was picked, and they've needed it to be. And so, yeah, I think he's been terrific as time has gone on. Yeah, and these young guys, this is what you need. I mean, Garindo, him, Mustafa. I mean, these are the guys that are going to help you. It's been a good. I mean, they've really done well in this class. Yeah, and you need these guys. Especially as you move closer, November, December, these guys are going to be important, especially moving forward, even going into the playoffs. So, I mean, they've played well. They've had their opportunities. I know Kyle Shanahan doesn't like playing rookies, but I think in this case, he's got no choice. Some of these guys have to get on the football field, and they have to play at a high level. It's pretty incredible what they've been able to do through the draft in like rounds 5, 6, 4, 5, 6. I mean, you look at George Kittle. Was he a 5th rounder, right? You've got Drake Greenlaw out there has been fantastic. Wasn't he a 5th rounder as well? You got a contract now handed out to Demo Lenore, another 5th rounder. Fred Warner, a 3rd rounder. Wasn't Talanoa Hufanga a 5th rounder? Yeah, I mean, and Juwan Jennings was a 7 or 6 or 7th. Yeah, I mean, a 7th. Incredible. I mean, you look at and he's been able to. I mean, he's a bona fide number 1 wide receiver now. Yeah, Malik Mustafa's been fantastic as well. I mean, what they've been able to playing at that level in the guts of the draft has been spectacular. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson, and the Super Bowl champion Dennis Brown with you from Levi Stadium. We're still hanging out with you till about 12 o'clock today. We'll hand it over to Tim Ryan and Greg Pop, and they will take you up to and through kickoff before we're back with you after the game. So Trent Williams and the ankle, Adam Schefter reporting trending more positive, and the Niners are more optimistic, even though he didn't practice on Friday. George Kittle, they're pessimistic about, but we'll find out more on his injury in just a little bit. DK Metcalf will play today. Nick Bosa in the hip. They were nursing that, but we can talk about all of this with our guy Matt Mayoko, our 49ers insider from NBC Sports Bay Area, who will join us next, only here on the Sports Leader.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
I was happy. When I heard my agent tell me the deal was finally done, I burst out into tears. It was, that I finally, able to change my family's life, for generations, so it's just a blessing.
That's the voice of Diamador Lenore. Congrats to him, man. I mean, what a cool story that's been. Somebody who I think we were all anticipating was going to be tough to bring back after this year just because of the year he's having and how much money they're going to have to commit to a guy like Brock Purdy. But he gets a 5-year contract, $92 million, the 6th highest paid corner, a former 5th round pick out of Oregon. Just a cool situation for him as he's now going to be a part of the core of this future. And joining us to talk about that, among some other things here ahead of Niners and the Seahawks, our 49ers insider from NBC Sports Bay Area, it's Matt Mayoko. What's going on, Matt? How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
We're doing all right. Waking up today to the news that George Kittle may not be able to go. Adam Schefter reporting 49ers not optimistic, which means they're pessimistic about his opportunity or chance to go today, but then saying they're more optimistic about a guy like Trent Williams. What do you know about either of these right now?
Kittle will not play. I saw him. He came in about, 2 hours ago. Usually he doesn't come in that early. Generally, guys who are going through physical therapy or rehabbing, they come in early. So what I've been told is that he will not play. Trent Williams is here. He comes, walking in pretty slowly, but that's just how he walks. I think that both he and he plays a lot faster than he walks. Let's put it that way. So I think that Trent and Bosa will play. Now they might get out there before pregame warmups and kind of test themselves out a little bit, but I think Kittle's the only one who won't be in uniform among those questionable guys, the starters who the team would have up in uniform if they're healthy.
Matt, Adam brought up Diamador Lenore and the contract. I mean, what is your sense for just the relief that the 49ers are not going to have another major contract issue dip into the offseason or even sniff maybe late July or early August?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess they could have franchised him, but he was scheduled for unrestricted free agency. So that situation was a little bit different. That situation would have been settled by mid-March anyway. But he's playing at such a high level, you kind of wonder if, they would have gone down that road as far as placing the franchise tag on him. Now, with their cap situation, that might have been difficult because all that, whatever that number would have all counted against the cap this year. But they were able to work out a deal where, his big money doesn't kick in for a couple of years. Diamador has security now. I think it's nearly $16 million, fully guaranteed. And so it worked out well. I mean, this is a situation where the 49ers were able to get out in front of the market because I think if he had hit free agency, he would have had a really big contract, bigger than what he signed with the 49ers. But at the same time, for Lenore, you don't want to put yourself in that position where you have to make it through 8 games healthy in order to get your payday. I mean, we saw what happened with Brandon Ayuk. I mean, his contract came at a great time for him because, if that had happened a year ago, he wouldn't have been able to sign the big contract that he signed this year. So it worked out for both sides just to kind of do it at midseason and reduce the risk for Lenore to make him get paid and get his generational money. And for the 49ers, I think that based on how he's played, that contract definitely looks like a bargain at this point.
Well, and Matt, this is something that to that point about guys holding out and getting the contract. I mean, again, that's why Brandon Ayuk did what he did in case something like this happens. Then, you're protected and you're taken care of. I look at a guy like Talanoa Hufanga, and I hate to think the Niners were able to do this because of their lack in confidence of his return this year. But we heard the report earlier this season that they thought maybe he wouldn't play again. Then, of course, his agent immediately goes, no, he may play with a cast, which you go, okay, well, he's going to be a free agent. Does that skepticism about his ability to play impact anything that happened with Lenore, you think?
I don't think so. They're different positions. But I do think that, I don't know, this isn't really your question, but when you look at what they're able to do now with their defensive backfield, all the talk about this is the last dance and this and that. Well, when it comes to the defensive backfield, and this secondary might be, the best secondary they've had in a while. I mean, look at them going forward. I mean, they have Lenore for 5 more years after this season. You have Malik Mustafa and Renardo Green, who are rookies. And then you have Jair Brown, who's a second-year guy. So those 4 guys, and, Charvarius Ward will miss this game. And I think he kind of knew where he stood even before, the family tragedy that occurred a couple of weeks back. But, I think that everybody could kind of see it like, they wouldn't be able to re-sign both Lenore and Ward, and I'm not sure they would want to re-sign both of them because they have Renardo Green, who's on a fixed contract here for the next couple of years. So, they're in really good shape as far as that goes. And then just looking at Hufanga, he's in a spot where, he had the ACL last year. He's dealing with the wrist right now. And then, I mean, you could even put, I guess, Dre Greenlaw in the same category where, he hasn't played yet this season. Both of those guys are scheduled to be unrestricted free agents. And so what's that market going to look for them? Is it going to be a situation where, the 49ers could bring them back? Because, they'd have to play on a prove-it contract anyway. In the case of Hufanga, it certainly looks like the 49ers have their starters at the safety position moving forward. So, I'm not sure there's going to be a spot for him next year. And, with so many other 49er influenced organizations, and I'm talking about guys who are either general managers or head coaches or defensive coordinators or whatever, I think it opens up the possibilities for Hufanga and potentially for Greenlaw to land at other places, even though, they haven't, even though their sample size isn't real great in recent years because of the injuries. But, a guy like whatever, Rand Carthon with Tennessee, or Adam Peters with, Washington, or Mike McDaniel. I mean, those guys who know those players might be more apt to give them a multi-year contract just because they're familiar with them and they know them well.
Matthew, I got a quick – I mean, there's been a lot of talk this whole entire football season about the 49ers special teams and kind of the lapses in special teams, especially last week with the 3 missed field goals. Has Kyle Shanahan done anything different in practice as far as special teams and, when they practice and how they practice and the way they approach their practice?
I don't believe so. Yeah, I think they just practice. That's how they feel like they can get better, is just to continue to practice and pay attention to detail and hone in on those, the details that it takes. It's not like it's the same thing happening every week. We've seen some repeat stuff, but, last week it was missed field goals, and that was a new one. There have been blocked punts. There have been, fake punts converted. There have been long returns, both in kickoffs and punts. I'm sure fumbles. There's been muff punts. There's been all kinds of different things, but
there's been 3 kickers, Matt, and 2 punters. That's really all we had to say. It's too much stuff going on.
Well, and especially whenever you rely on your kicker to make tackles, that's a bad sign on so many different levels. But what they did make one change, and to be honest with you, when I asked Kyle Shanahan about this on Monday, they signed Nick McLeod, who is known as a really good special teams player. He was a backup cornerback who actually started some games with the New York Giants, but he's known for his special teams. They signed him to the practice squad on Monday, and I asked Shanahan on Monday, is the plan with Nick McLeod, to get him up and get him contributing right away? And there's a part of me that believes that Shanahan didn't know who Nick McLeod was at the time I asked him the question. But lo and behold, Nick McLeod is active and will be suiting up for the 49ers in this game, taking the place of Darrell Luter, who goes on IR. So, they have made some, they did make that change on special teams, hoping that somebody from the outside can help them out in that area.
When you look at the matchups in the Geno Smith, Brock Purdy era, what has stood out as far as why the 49ers have largely been dominant?
Well, because Seattle's not as dominant. I think that's the main thing, is that going up against the Seattle defense is a lot different now than it was when they were going up against, those teams of Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas. So that part is different. But I also think that, just Brock Purdy, he's able to take this offense to another level, and he's unflappable, and he does what is necessary to win. And this year it's more, using his legs. So, I guess that would be the main thing. It's turned. It used to be that Seattle dominated the 49ers. Now we're in a stretch where the 49ers are dominating Seattle. So it's just kind of the cyclical thing that oftentimes happens in the NFL with one team kind of being down. And it's not like Seattle is like horrible, but I think they are. Right now, I'd say they're pretty clearly the 4th out of 4 teams in the NFC West.
Matt Mayoka, the voice you hear, our 49ers insider from NBC Sports Bay Area. Just last one for you before we let you go, Matt. We were talking some of the injury stuff. We were discussing with Dennis the the now infamous Baker Mayfield Nick Bosa play from last week where he perp walked him or danced with him to the sideline. In terms of Nick Bosa's hip, I know he had some limited and then no practice a couple of days or one day this week. How much is that affecting him and impacting his play right now?
Well, it did certainly impact him. If you watched the game last week, I don't know how much of this they showed on TV, but I mean, there were a lot of times where I would see him leave the field and think that maybe he's not coming back. So I do think that hip pointer did impact him quite a bit. And I don't know if what's the term that's used? I don't know if they can block that pain, which basically means a needle. But I think it did impact him last week. There's no doubt about it. I don't know if it impacted him on that particular play. I mean, he had him, with both hands. And I think the idea this week was, now he knows kind of how to manage it a little bit. He didn't need to do anything in practice. He didn't. He got out there a little bit on Friday. But I think the idea is just, kind of keep it where it is. Don't do anything during the week. He plays a position where, he doesn't – his game plan is see quarterback, get quarterback. So there's not a whole lot of on-field preparation that has to take place for him to play at a top level. So I would expect him to be out there on the field today.
Matt, appreciate the time as always. We'll make sure we're reading you and listening for the 49ers Talk podcast that Matt and Jennifer Lee Chan do a great job on. You'll get that today after the game. Matt, we'll talk to you upstairs. We'll see you there.
All right. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Good deal there, Matt Mayoko, our insider from NBC Sports Bay Area. Awesome. Always catching up with Matt. When we come on back, we'll get you to the Building the Game Plan, and John Lynch, who joins the KNBR Morning Show each and every week, and get you what he thought about how this past week went against Tampa and how they get ready for Seattle, who they have 6 consecutive victories against. More to come. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Dickinson here on the Sports Leader. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ Dennis Brown, John Dickinson with you from Levi's Stadium, getting you ready. Niners and the Seahawks. I always love they say that every Sunday morning football show. The guys will get you ready. JB, Terry, Howie, and Jimmy and the guys will get you ready. Copes and the guys here getting you ready for the Niners and Seattle. Big division tilt today here. 105 kickoff. We'll hand it over to Greg Papa and Tim Ryan, just over an hour, and they will take you the rest of the way. Also, Larry Kruger to join us in just a little while. But first, it's time for Building the Game Plan, sponsored by Golden State. When you succeed, we succeed. Visit us today at goldenstatelumber.com and by River Islands. Come home to River Islands in Lathrop and discover the San Joaquin River lifestyle with its lakes, parks, and schools. Discover or start your tour today at riverislands.com. It was for me. John Lynch joins the KNBR Morning Show each and every week throughout the 49ers season. And this week, they opened up the show with Murph and Marcus asking him. Murph, as always, started with the hard-hitting question. Here you go.
For a man who's been on the sidelines and a man who's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, what's your breakdown? Tabor Pepper v. Deebo Samuel, 15 rounds. Who you got?
That's good. I won't touch that one. But, you know, I think back, there's one of the best assistant coaches I've ever been around, one of the best coaches I've ever, Rod Marinelli. He was the guy who led our defensive lines with Warren Sapp and Simeon Rice, those great Tampa defenses. And occasionally in an NFL locker room or meeting room or sideline, you have scuffles, and everyone wants to make a big thing like, oh my God. And he used to sit back there. Rod was an old Marine who fought in a lot of wars. Yeah. He would be smiling, and I'd say, Rod, what's going on? Like, Sapp's fighting this dude. This is when they play their best. I love it. So I look down there and I see passionate people who want to win. And, I don't applaud the situation, but like Deebo simply was telling Jake Moody, basically his way of saying, hey, we believe in you, saying, lock in, man. We need you. You got this. And Pepper saw it from afar, and we always talk as 49ers having each other's back. I think we all know those specialists are a different bunch. They spend a lot of time with the team, but they also spend a lot of time, just the three of them, and they get really close. And so he had his guys back and probably didn't see or hear exactly what Deebo was saying. And then Deebo basically said, don't you ever get in my face. And then we squashed it like families do. And so, a little bit of show of emotion. Not unfortunate, it's just the reality that there's cameras everywhere that catch everything, and everybody got a little insight to stuff that sometimes goes on. And we're battling, we're competing. It's hot. A lot of the players down there were saying, JL, how did you ever do training camp down here? Because we were here deep into November, or, mid-November, and it was hot. It was really hot and humid, and so you get a little ornery there, and we're trying to beat a team. And I know they've lost 5 of 6, but the Chiefs said the same thing after it. Like, you come out of that game going, that's a good team, and albeit with their top 3 receivers, they're built really well from the lines, and so it's a very physical game when you play the Bucs. And so you have to work, you have to earn it, and we had to earn it, and because of various things that happened throughout the game, but I was proud of our guys. And you mentioned Christian from the start. It's good to see he still looks like Christian, and he came out of it really well. And so we're excited about that. We went out on the road in a tough circumstance, found a way to win, and now we got a big division, challenge right in front of us. I believe our best football's in front of us. We got to put that to test this week, because I know we're going to get the Seahawks' best effort. They're fighting to try to stay alive in our division. I think they're starting to understand on the offense and defense schematically what the coaches want out of them. They're just coming off a bye week. A lot of reasons that say that these guys are going to give us their best shot, and so we got to expect that. But it's really about us and hitting on all cylinders.
Mm-hmm. And, John, I think it goes without saying that Jake Moody obviously had a roller coaster of a game this past Sunday. What were your thoughts on his performance and his ability to bounce back and hit that game-winning field goal?
You just said it. He hit the game-winning field goal. I watched last night Elliott, who's been a really good kicker for the Eagles, and he missed 2, and I believe missed an extra point as well. It happens. Jake's been a good kicker for us, and I think only going to get better. We still have a ton of belief. His teammates have a lot of belief in him, and I think Jake's going to make a lot of game-winning kicks for us. And is his first game back, and we have high expectations from him. The better thing is Jake has higher expectations for himself. So he's gone to work and fixing technique-wise, whatever of what was off, and he'll get it right. We got a lot of confidence in that kid.
Fans. Yeah, I want a new kicker. No thought of it.
We didn't blink. No. We got a lot of faith in this kid. He had a rough day, and we all have rough days. And if the first day you have a rough day, people give up on you. That's not how we operate. We got a lot of, we do have, tough decisions to make from time to time, but there's a lot of context to put into these things, and Jake has earned a lot of respect and, from this organization.
I think there was a line in Ted Lasso about it'd be a sad world if everybody's judged on their worst day.
Hey. I like that.
There's something to that. I got to get you the exact line to you. But, okay, other things. But one other thing on Moody I would say is, do you got his kickoffs? And I would say, in fairness, he hasn't missed a PAT this year. That's stuff that you guys factor into the equation. He brings value there.
He brings a lot of value, and we believe he's going to find himself into, being a top-level kicker in this league. We really do. He's got that kind of talent. There's a reason, he was drafted as high as he was. We made that decision. There were teams that weren't far behind us. You find those things out after you draft them, and so there was going to be competition. He's a very talented kid and got the right type of mindset. Jake's going to be great.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we mentioned McCaffrey, and the one thing I'd ask about is the workload. That seems to be a topic this week. Wow. And the workload also meant there wasn't much work for Jordan Mason, who was one of the best rushers in the NFL. So would you say that you guys would like to maybe balance that more Sunday?
I think it just depends on the game. Christian is such a well-conditioned athlete. So oftentimes, we sit here and we say, hey, he's in tremendous shape, but now he's got to get in football shape. The one thing that Christian does, and I give our health and performance, you obviously, like I said last week, you can't go recruit some 350-pound guy and say, hey, you beat Vita Vea, hit Christian 10 times so that he can get ready for this game, and then let's get 10 other guys off the street to go finish him off in the pile. You just can't do that, but you can try to simulate, and Christian's intent and everything he does is so good that I think he did a really good job of doing that in the ramp-up phase. So he was as ready as he could be. I think he looked really well. I think Kyle went in with a plan. The game was tight throughout. We couldn't put it away, and so it's hard to take that dude off the field. Having said that, we're mindful of it. The best thing I can tell you is that we got a lot of confidence. I would tell you not only in J.P. Mason, in Garendo, but Patrick Taylor, for that matter, who's now on our practice squad. I mean, we've got a lot of good backs here, and we've got a lot of faith in each of them. Christian's a game-changing player, but I promise you those guys will get their opportunities, and it could be this week. You just never know. They got to stay ready. They got to help us in other ways, but those guys they've earned the right to get the ball, and I'm sure they will throughout the course of this season.
John, it's always a special moment when a player scores his first touchdown in the NFL, but especially with everything that Ricky Pearsall went through this offseason and to get to this moment, that had to feel good for the entire organization to see him to get into the end zone.
Yeah, it did, and it was in a huge moment. It really was, and Ricky is just I always like watching the process, like people always say with a rookie, when did it click? But to me, Ricky looked like the guy, we thought we were getting, drafted him. And not that we were ever disappointed, but I think combination of his legs getting underneath him being a little clouded, learning the offense because he hadn't had the chance, just looked last week like, man, all right, this is the Ricky Pearsall that we thought we were getting. And man, he's even more. What a great kid. What a mentally tough kid, what a physically tough kid, what he's endured. And I think he's just so grateful be alive, to be out there on the football field. He's loving every step of it. And I think he's a guy we're just going to watch get better every day right before our eyes. And he's going to be a really good football player for a long time for us.
John, before we let you go, we have to ask you about Diamador Lenore's contract extension. Talk to us about signing him at this point of the season and what it means for the franchise to have Demo locked up for the next 5 years.
Yeah, it's not real normal that we extend guys during the course of the year. We tried this in training camp, really convicted on the player. You think about all he does for us. He plays the nickel position where that gets grimy, that gets tough. You're involved in run fits, and then he goes outside and really excels at the defensive corner position, which is a hard position to play in this league. He's tough. He's physical. He's confident. He's gotten better every practice, every year since he's been here. He really is what we want to be in our players and what we covet in our players. He's I think the greatest testament to him is how happy the entire place was for him, because he's really earned this. 5th round pick, went through tough times early on where I think there was some people in the organization questioning, all right, is he gonna pan out? But young players go through struggles. We also saw some great ability, and we hung with him, but more importantly, he just eventually, you couldn't not put him on the field, and he just keeps getting better. And so we're very fortunate to have him. Very grateful that he and his representatives agreed to sit down and talk, and that we got something done. And it's a big deal for us to have him as one of our cornerstones going forward.
Oh, for sure. What a great story he is, and he's a dog, as they say. Last 2 quick ones. You said about trading for players, or getting players back is like a trade. Yatur Gross-Matos trending to play?
He's doing really well. He's had two full practices this week, and so, you kind of make those decisions as the week goes on. But, I think the way Yatur's going right now, it's looking pretty good for him.
And Dre Greenlaw update, any chance?
We're getting close. I know I keep saying we're getting closer, but he continues to work off to the side, and there's just markers we want to hit, and we want to make sure that we get him there. The other thing with Dre, I think once he gets in practice, you open that window up. He probably takes a little bit of that window. This is, coming off an Achilles, it's not a simple thing. So it's not easy, and you just really have to go through all the steps. And so we're trying to just be really, and believe me, it's hard for Dre. It's hard for us. We'd love just to throw him out there this week because we'd be a better team for it. But we want him back, not only for the short term, we want him back for the duration. So we're trying to be very purposeful on how we do that. And so he's getting closer, but don't have any definition and definitive answers on that.
And last one, because we've kept you long, are you worried about Nick Bosa's hip this weekend?
No, I think he's getting better. Those things hurt, and I could see during the game, I had a close eye on him. I could see it was hurting him. Generally, they get better kind of if you can get through a game with those things. So I think, though, he did learn that last week he kind of worked through it in practice, and it's probably better to take a little rest, which is, Nick plays so much, works so hard. I think sometimes just a little bit off his legs is actually a good thing for him and for us. And so if we can get him, I still think he's got to make some progress before Sunday. But if we can get him and get him a little bit fresh, that's going to be a good thing for us.
We always enjoy it. We'll look forward to Sunday's game and talk to you next week.
Yeah, thanks, John.
All right, fellas. Thanks a lot.
Mason stays in. Here's Purdy on a 2nd and 5. Throws over the middle. Wide open. Ricky Pearsall's got the catch. 20, 15, 10, 5. Pearsall all the way to the goal line. Touchdown! San Francisco!
We're back here from Levi Stadium. Adam Copeland, the Super Bowl champion, Dennis Brown, and John Dickinson with you. And we are joined by today's honorary captain, played for the Niners. What'd you play? 6 years here? 5 years? 5 years with the 49ers?
And what position?
Offensive right tackle.
Here we go.
Offensive right tackle.
Here we go.
So, Scott, honestly, in practice, do you guys practice holding?
We practice holds? You got
okay. See, again,
good
it's
at
proven.
it, right?
It's been proven.
You're not good at it. You're gonna get called for it.
It's been proven. Now Jesse's coming here and he said that no, we've never held. Guy McIntyre swears that he's never held anybody.
I have very few holding calls in my career.
There we go.
Career, very few,
but a lot. You did a lot of holding.
But holding it. Yeah, it happened.
Holding on every play, they will tell you. You know what I mean? So Scott Gregg, our honorary captain here today. First time. How long's it been since you've been back here for an Niner game?
This would be 20 years from San Francisco playing.
Yeah.
And had opportunity to come out with some of the other award winners a couple years ago, and have been more closer ties to San Francisco the last 5 years
Very cool.
than I have the previous 20.
Yeah, and you were here in 2000 season, correct? Was that your 2024?
Yeah, 2000 season was my first year here. Yeah,
right. And who was your quarterback then?
Jeff Garcia. Yeah, Fiver.
He was here a couple weeks ago.
We had him like 3 weeks ago. He was our honorary captain.
I mean, he's looking really good.
I played with my college quarterback was Dave Dickinson. Also played in the CFL. And cut from the same cloth. You knew when you looked at that guy, we were winning that game just because he's so competitive. It was a ton of fun to play with that guy.
Yeah. Jeff was. I remember watching Jeff play at I think San Jose State. Right, He was a San Jose State guy. And I worked with Jeff on television, and he's still just as intense. I mean, it's just incredible just how intense that guy is, and attacking what he's doing, and watching him play football. Was pretty fantastic. So, welcome back. It's always good to have alumni back.
Yeah.
Even offensive linemen. It's fun to have offensive linemen back. But I don't know if you follow the team, but this team has they've played well and they've played bad. I mean, what's kind of been your overall view of this football team?
Yeah, it's been actually, I coming out of the game, I started to follow college football a little bit more, and the last couple of years with the NIL and the transfer portal, I actually enjoy watching the NFL and the Niners a lot more. There's more continuity, and what I appreciate about this team this year is that it seems like the momentum's in their favor. Like went through a rough patch, but we getting some guys back.
Yeah,
I feel good about where we're at. It's always tough to beat a team twice, so that'll be one of the challenges today. The Seahawks are sneaky. I don't think they're as good as the Niners are, as we are, but it'll be a good game today, I think.
What is it about the division games? Whether a team's up, a team's down, division games just always seem different, closer.
I think it's the familiarity with the teams. You kind of know what the concept is, the game plan. You try to change things up, as an offensive coordinator collegiately, and then all around. Those guys always carry around the briefcase and thinking about the new schemes. And actually, it just boils down to not turning the thing over and running the ball effectively is what needs to happen today. We've got some great talent all around the board, but I think that just basics of taking control of the ball and I think we can get it.
I always like to ask Dennis, and I love when we get linemen in defensive or offensive, because I asked Dennis one of the first times we worked together. So who's the guy that you hated to see come through the hole? Like, who's the running back you didn't want? And he always says Ironhead Hayward was the guy.
Yeah.
He was like, I don't need that guy running back. Like, dude, that's a nightmare. Yeah. On the other side of things, defensive ends coming at you at right tackle. Who's the guy who just wreaked havoc?
Well, I practiced against Strahan for 5 years when I was with the Giants, and then we went here, and I didn't get a chance to play him until 2002, and we played him twice.
I remember him.
Great games, and actually got a game ball from that. So I didn't necessarily like to practice against him, but I think that the amount of respect I have for that guy and how hard he works, it was an enjoyable game, and I had a lot of help from some nice, Fred Beasley being in the background, backfield, getting a few chips in there certainly helped that out.
Yeah, and talk about play. I mean, you talk about defensive ends. But what about running backs? We're talking about Christian McCaffrey and different styles of running backs. And I'm sure you've seen the way Christian McCaffrey plays as an offensive lineman. I mean, does it change as far as the backs? You talk about Beasley. I mean, if you were blocking for Christian McCaffrey, I mean, how would it change? Different backs, different running backs.
The style of that. My coaching philosophy moving from that, which used to be, you need to move the line of scrimmage was a big thing, and the form and the way the running backs did that were able to be successful in that way. Create a certain style of running back and change that in moving more towards staying on the lineman.
Holding them. Yeah. Holding the lineman.
Well, not holding them, running with them and doing those things. And I think that suits Christian a little bit more is not necessarily the 350-pound Cowboys linemen across the board to more athletic, being able to stay in front of guys, I think is more of a key, and that tends to aid those running backs that we're seeing now.
Yeah,
Scott Gregg, the voice you hear, our honorary captain today. It's fun having you back. It's cool having you back. I love the new faces and the faces we're getting to come on back and be around the program and the organization. Good to have you, Scott. Thanks so much.
Before you leave, we always got to shoot out the family.
Yeah,
you got your wife here. You got to shoot out the wife.
Tony's here.
Wife Tony's here.
Our kids are in Montana doing life. It's a good time. It's a good time to be Scott, for sure.
It's a good time to be Scott. And go Grizz. Go Grizzlies.
Absolutely.
My buddy played ball up there for a while, too. Scott Gregg, the honorary captain today. We got more to come. Larry Kruger joins us next on the Sports Leader.
No, man. Normally I don't even get like that, but just like frustrated in the heat of battle. Really close game, and I kind of got out of character a little bit, but I'll talk to Moody, and we'll get past it.
That's the voice of Deebo Samuel following last week's. I don't know, what would you just call it? Like a little spat, little heated interaction between Deebo, kerfuffle, yeah. and again, because they won the game, it's not a huge thing. But if they lose that game or Moody doesn't make that last kick, this is something we're talking about all week. It's maybe one of the number one stories in national media for the NFL. And here to talk about all of it, the great Larry Kruger, Niners Nightly, weeknight 6 to 7 on KNBR, joins our pre- and post-game coverage. And as always, the Krug Show. What's up, Krug? How are you, bro?
What's up? Could you imagine if Tabor Pepper had, botched the snap on the last
Oh, no. Debo's like, why don't you lock in, huh?
I mean, that would have just
I was talking to the wrong guy.
Well, how about this? I was thinking about this one earlier. My buddy, this is funny. Yesterday, I'm doing Stanford football pregame, and I get a text from a buddy. He goes, this is really nerdy, and it's really inside. By the way, it's like 10 a.m. yesterday.
Right.
He goes, this is really nerdy, and it's kind of inside, but do you know who the holder is going to be tomorrow with Wisnowski out? Is it going to be? And I said, boy, it could be Pat O'Donnell, who's the guy who comes up as the new punter. Or do you trust Kyle Juszczyk more? And it might be a little rainy today. This is not setting up great for having a new punter out here.
No, it's been a rough year for special teams, and they badly need a clean day of special teams.
Sure.
Laviska Shenault took one back in the first game and almost took two back. So, I mean, the coverage units are got to be better, and we'll see. I mean, this is going to be, how does Jake bounce back from last week? How does the new punter look? How do the coverage units look? I mean, special teams, I think, is a major part of today.
And I asked Matthew this question, and I don't remember special teams practicing, but what happens? I mean, what happens in a situation like this? I mean, does the practice change? I mean, do you get, I don't know, you can't get more physical on what happens? I know it's details, but does the practice, or does Kyle Shanahan even worry about special teams?
Well, I think he definitely worries about special teams, and they do practice it. And I think he, pushed back on the notion that you should do something different because of the implication is you weren't doing enough.
And, and he also pushed back on the notion that he just doesn't care. That gets asked almost weekly. Which,
do you care about special teams?
Do you even care?
Well, he's on record as saying, I don't want to win the game with special teams. I just don't want to lose it. So that's kind of why that comes up. But, I mean, they just have to be better. Cowing's got to be better. Luter, who's not, going to be there today because he's on IR now. But, I mean, he's got to be more aware. You can be blocked into your return man. And it's happened. So, they just have to be better. They don't want to fire the special teams coach. From talking to the people in Seattle, they said that when he was there, that Schneider used a lot of starters. Brandon Browner played on special teams and a couple other guys. So maybe that's the solution. Maybe you got to play some starters on special teams.
Well, it seems like a guy that you would be all over. Nick McLeod, is that his name?
Yeah, and that's a great ad.
So he comes in. He's a former defensive back, or he's a backup defensive back, but he's a special teams specialist, is what they call him. And again, that's not something that people are constantly looking to have on their roster. It's just when things go this bad. But he's going to slot in there. Sounds like for Luter today. What kind of ad is this? What kind of player is he?
He's an impact player. I mean, he wore 44 with the Giants, and he's an impact guy. He can play the gunner spots. He can play a bunch of different spots, really, on special teams. But he's a very sure tackler. He's actually not even bad from scrimmage. So, he played at Notre Dame. He started, I think, at NC State and transferred. Really good athlete. I mean, and, he thinks his best footballs right now. I haven't had a chance to do an interview with him, but 4.4 speed, 6'1", about 195, prototypical size. He's played corner, has played special teams, and has made a number of highlight plays on special teams. So I'm eager to see if he can impact the thing.
How easy or difficult do you think it would be if Schneider decided, hey, I want to start, putting a couple of starters in on special teams, and really in the stretch run of a season when I think that's the one thing Kyle Shanahan probably doesn't want to do. Like we debate and joke
like starting pitcher to the bullpen at the end of a year. We just need him out there.
Or even, you want to ask, I mean, I think the 49ers lean on their star players so much that is it a fair ask, I guess, this late in the season?
Well, it's already been done. I mean, Debo played special teams, I think, last week. So, I mean, that Debo in some of the biggest games for the 49ers, I think if you go back to Philly last year, he plays, they put him back there in big moments. The guy that I'm wanting to see is Trent Taylor because he's so sure-handed. And Cowing, to me, and I like Cowing. I love Cowing from scrimmage as a downfield guy, but as a punt returner, if we're being fair about it, he looks very iffy. He's fallen down 3 or 4 times. He's muffed a punt. He's had another one where he almost muffed it. He's juggled it. He's just not giving you that look of like rock solid. And if your stated goal is just we don't want to win the game on special teams, just not lose it, and you have Trent Taylor, man, I think one of these weeks you might want to call Trent Taylor off the practice squad and just let him catch it, or go for the block every time and let the ball roll.
Dude, if not, I'm not mistaken, didn't Trent Taylor used to return kicks or punts?
He did, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
And he's practice squad.
He's on practice and you only get a couple of elevations, and then you have to sign him for the rest of the year. So I wonder if they're just waiting maybe until the last possible time that they have to do it to start elevating him and then ultimately put him on the roster if they want to go that route.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably
because you also have to healthy deactivate somebody. Somebody's going like, does Jacob Cowing become a healthy scratch because he's not going to be returning punts because you want Trent Taylor in there? That's the question. You have to ask.
It's a trade-off because I definitely think Cowing without Ayuk is the guy that you really want to have as a downfield threat.
Talking to Larry Kruger here, Niners Nightly, and joins us on the pre- and post-game show every week here on 49er Football. Let's get to the player to bank on, sponsored by Casino Matrix. Just drop in for gaming, dining, sports. Please gamble responsibly. 1-800-GAMBLER. We talked, by the way, Larry, at the beginning of the show about John Lund and how much time we spent with him here. You did many shows with him here, pre- and post-games, and worked with him for a long time. One thing I don't think John would have a problem with us saying is he always botched the player to bank on. He never knew which guy to pick, and he was always wrong about it. Why don't you... We love our guy, dude. It's one of our bits we did every week. Why don't you give us your player to bank on today? We should note, Matt Mayerko tells us George Kittle not going to play today. Trent Williams, I think they do think he's going to play. They're more optimistic about it, that he was nursing an injury this week as well. Who's the player to bank on for the Niners today?
Well, I think there's 2 guys that have to step up in the moment. It's Eric Saubert on the offense. He's a blocker. He's a really strong blocker. Who's going to win this game today? The team that runs the ball and stops the run. That team's going to be the 49ers, and I think Eric Saubert's going to have a huge hand in the blocking efforts. Now, he's not Kittle as a receiver, but he might be Kittle as a blocker. I mean, he's a really strong, inline, tenacious, keeps his feet driving, keeps his locked on the target. He's really good as a blocker. So Saubert, I think, is definitely key. And then on the defensive side, with no Mooney Ward, I think it's Isaac Yiadom and Rock Ya-Sin. I mean, those guys have got to step up. You got DK, you got JSN, you got... obviously Lockett is tremendous. A.J. Barner's a talent. So they have weapons. They love to pass. You don't have Mooney, and I think Yiadom is the key guy. He's got to step up.
One more I want to ask you about. Eder Gross-Matos comes off of injured reserve today. What's that impact, and is it immediate?
I think so. If there was a guy practice is practice, and Dennis knows it's game day is game day. It's a big difference. But man, at practice, this guy looked amazing this week. I mean, he's big, he's long, he's explosive, he's relatively fresh because we're in November. A lot of these guys aren't, and he's been getting some rest, and he just looks amazing. So we'll see. I mean, he's always had the physical skills, and now it's just a matter of, can he play his best football? The Niners really believe that his best football's coming. So maybe it starts today, because he is a tremendous player to watch in practice.
Yeah, I think he's somebody that takes the pressure off of everybody, and Bosa's obviously banged up. They thought they were going to have a 3-headed monster, really, with Floyd and Bosa and Gross-Matos, and they just haven't had him because of the injury. And I think he could be well positioned to be a nice stretch run ad that impacts everything. Because this defense, we've talked about it so much, Larry, they're not dominant like they were in the past. But if they can just get home on the quarterback a little bit more, I think it helps provide a little more margin for error. And the offense as well. If the offense can score a couple more touchdowns here and there, that allows the defense to be a little bit more rested and have that margin for error they need.
Yeah, and I think in this game, this is good. This is a good game for this defense to kind of get after. I mean, this offensive line, they really should get after this Seahawks offensive line. I mean, they're beat up. The center position, I think they can really get after Geno Smith. So yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, it's a line of scrimmage kind of a game. I think it's it's a division game. They're always super physical. Sam O. Don't forget Sam O.
Yeah,
Dennis,
about him, yeah.
you brought that up before, but Sam O's balling. He's playing well. So they do have some extra guys. It will be nice. Sometimes when you add, in baseball, you add one hitter to a lineup, everybody relaxes. It's the same kind of thing in pass rushing and D-line play. You add one guy, and everybody can kind of settle into their role and play their right number of snaps, and then they can set their speed at a higher level, and everybody benefits. So it's going to be big. To me, the big key is Seattle is going to throw it to Kenneth Walker out of the backfield quite a bit today. He had a big target share in the first game. The Niners struggle to defend the running back out of the backfield. If they can stop Kenneth Walker as a receiver, I think they win big.
Larry, thanks for thanks for stopping by. We'll see you after the game. We'll see you upstairs as well.
Absolutely.
Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Dickinson with you here from Levi Stadium. Still to come, we got our 49er player spotlight, the Steve Young Show, and we'll go up to the broadcast booth and check in with our guy, Greg Papa. It's Niners and the Seahawks, Week 11, and it's only here on the Sports Leader. We're live here from Levi Stadium. Adam Copeland, the Super Bowl champion, Dennis Brown, John Dickinson with you. Why don't we get you what's on deck, sponsored by TimberTech Decking and Railing. Everything wood should be. Visit TimberTech.com. What's on deck for the Niners is the first of 3 more division games to wrap up this season, and, of course, the final tilt of the year against the Arizona Cardinals. Plus, it gets difficult after this one. Down to go to Green Bay, having to go to Buffalo. You play those 2 teams, plus the Lions still come to town. Don't forget, the early part of the schedule was supposed to be the, quote, soft part of the schedule for the 49ers. Why don't we get you some scores From around the NFL, the morning slate already underway. It has been underway now for about an hour and a half. A lot of these games have gone to halftime. Should point out first, the Cardinals idle today, so the 49ers can make up some ground, but still be, even with a win, behind Arizona because they own the tiebreak, and you don't see them until Week 18, the final game of the season. Teams on bye this week, Giants, Cardinals, Bucks, and Panthers. Here's what's going on around the NFL for Week 11. Bears right now up on the Packers, and JD before this game said, I think the Bears might get this one. I said, well, that doesn't feel good because I have the Packers minus 5.5, so I'm not loving that. Packers down 10-7 right now at halftime. The Lions are up big, 28 first-half points, 21 of them coming in the second quarter. Jared Goff just continuing his accurate season, 13 of 16, 205 and a touchdown. Amon-Ra's got 7 for 81 and a touch. Montgomery's got 2 rushing touchdowns on 8 carries, which is pretty incredible. The Lions feeling like a team of destiny type season. Vikings are up 16-3 on the Titans in Tennessee. Raiders down in Miami. Niners still have to go to Miami this year as well, trailing 10-6 at the hands of Tua and company. The Rams just missed a field goal at the end of the first half. Stanford's own Josh Carty just pushed one right and didn't find the uprights. They're up 14-10 on the Patriots as they hit halftime. Puka Nacua 6 catches for 117 and a touch in the first half. Browns trail the Saints 14-6 at halftime from New Orleans. The Colts are up 13-7 on the Jets after a big rushing touchdown from Anthony Richardson early in that one. And maybe the game of the morning slate, Ravens at the Steelers, 23 seconds left in the first half, and the Steelers are driving right now just outside of they just actually gave it up to the Ravens. Ravens going to try to run this thing out here at the end of the first half. 7-6 Ravens late in the second quarter. Afternoon slate, the big one is Bills and Chiefs, then of course 49ers and the Seahawks. Also got a good tilt this evening. Bengals at the Chargers is your Sunday night game. We got more to come. The 49er Player Spotlight, our Steve Young Show, and we'll go up and talk to Greg Papa. More to come from Levi Stadium. It's Week 11, Niners and the Seahawks on the Sports Leader. Adam Copeland back with your 49er Player Spotlight, Week 11, Niners and the Seahawks. And when you've got DK Metcalf out there, there's nowhere other position you look at other than defensive back. How is that going to be a factor today with him off the injury report, DK in there? And he got locked up and shut down the last time the 49ers saw the Seahawks, and he'll be most likely guarded by Demo Lenore, who this week just signed a 5-year, $92 million contract. A generational change in wealth is what he talked about. And here he is when he was asked about his confidence and how he plays with that much confidence, especially against a guy this week like DK Metcalf.
That really took place when I had my son. At that time, the season had just ended. He was about 6 months. I had moved to Arizona, and I felt like that was like my growth stage. You know, I stayed in that whole off season. I stayed my head down, working, really just putting myself in situations, watching film, like, you know, with our defense, making different calls and checks and seeing, you know, like how teams attack certain coverages and stuff. And I felt like that would elevate my game.
There you go, DK Metcalf, Demo Lenore using external factors there to talk about elevating his game. A 5th-rounder out of Oregon becomes the 6th highest-paid cornerback in the NFL, and he's certainly now, with a 5-year contract, is going to be a part of the future core of this 49er defense, and that's why he is this week's 49er Player Spotlight. Right, the Hall of Famer Steve Young, the best half hour in radio, joins KNBR on Wednesdays at 5 o'clock every week of the football season. And this week, Steve Young talked and described the 49ers need to be more explosive and continue to stack wins here at the back end of the season as you inch closer to the playoffs.
It's explosiveness, and that's how you smash people when it felt like you should have last week, is that you throwing up 7, another 7, another 7. That's 28-10, or 28-7 at halftime. Then it's 35, and then that's how you do it. And you kick a bunch of field goals, miss a couple, and then all of a sudden you're just holding on for dear life. And that's exactly what I talked about last week. Every field goal you kick, you're closer to losing, just because I've lived it. And that's it. Because defensively. Look, when we play really good teams, we're going to find out, next couple of weeks we play, I guess we got to go to Buffalo. That'll be awesome to kind of just check out how we're doing, how it's feeling, and what you're thinking about. But I think that's the key. And we've got to be 30 points plus like we were last year, in almost every game, or we're going to get beat.
Back here from Levi Stadium, Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, the Super Bowl champion, and John Dickinson with you. We'll go up to the broadcast booth to the man who will be on the call today. It's Greg Papa. Greg, how you doing, bro?
Well, let's start by just saying we miss John Lund. It's been weird all week. JD did a great job filling in for him on the show on Friday and Carlos Ramirez on Thursday. But coming to Levi's and doing this hit, Copes, with you and Dennis and JD and I did the show on Friday, so he's family. But it's just... it's a little odd not having John Lund here, I got to say.
We said it at the top of the show. I wanted to give Dennis an opportunity to talk about it. And again, they ushered me in. I wasn't with them when they started doing the pregame show. And John was such a mentor to me and to JD for a number of years. He's known him for 15 years. And all the work you guys did together, we definitely miss him. And I just didn't want to not acknowledge that he wasn't here. These changes happened, but he was such a big part and is a big part of our lives and what we do here that he really laid the groundwork and the foundation for what this show and this pregame show has become. So we'll just do the best we can to carry on what it is that he laid out for us. Just getting into some of the stuff for today, Greg. Could be some rainy weather. It's already really, really cold out there.
Yeah.
George Kittle not going to play today. We'll talk about some of the other stuff, but immediate impact to George not being there.
Well, I think the rain is going to hold off until later. Early in the week, we thought it maybe in the window of the game, Copes, but now I'm hearing more evenings, so we should be dry. But I do have my 49ers slicker just in case. Yeah, George, we got two big games coming up, at Green Bay, at Buffalo. And George had such a good game in Tampa last week, obviously. So that hamstrings are something you have to calm down. You don't want that to get worse, so he's got to calm it down a little bit. So I guess 2 out of 3 ain't bad. We watched the warm-up of Trent Williams, and we'll be anxious to see how he does in the game, if he does take a painkiller to be able to move a little better. But he's going to go today, and then obviously Nick Bosa is going to play through it. But on offense, they got plenty of weapons now. More 11 personnel certainly is in the offing today, the way Ricky Pearsall is balling out. And you want to listen to Kyle Shanahan always during our pregame show for our extended sit-down. And we go through the X, the Z, and the F wide receivers in detail, exactly what their responsibilities are, what they do. And Jawan Jennings has moved over to Brandon Ayuk's X wide receiver position, the split end position, and then Debo staying at Z. And you'll see Debo go in the backfield and run a little bit as a H as well, a halfback. And then Ricky becomes the F. And he's so good at that, and we saw what he did last week in Tampa. So, and they got some other guys, bigger body guys you may see playing tight end today on the move. But let's keep an eye on Trent and that left ankle and see how he does. And then do the 49ers play more 11 personnel today, which is something they don't typically do, and less 21 personnel, which is 2 backs today.
DK Metcalf, the 49ers and Diamador Lenore in particular took him out on October the 10th. He's coming back. He's been out. How do you see the matchup with the 49ers trying to combat an angry DK Metcalf? Because he's always angry.
He's angry. And I had a long talk before the game, JD, with Jake Peets, who was the Seattle Seahawks passing game coordinator. He was with the Rams before. I knew him for years with the Raiders. He was at Alabama when I went there to do an Iron Bowl a few years ago on Coach Saban's staff. So he's been a confidant for years, and he gave me the whole scouting report on DK. And there is a little bit like Draymond Green. I think, JD. He's got that fury. They don't want to take it completely out. But last time they were here, Fred had a pick late in the game. He took kind of a cheap shot at him, and they wound up rolling around, and he got kicked out of the game. And there have been days and nights when Kyle's told the team, hey, get 14 to light up a little bit, to get emotional, and we can get him kicked out of the game. And I thought a couple of years ago on Thanksgiving in Seattle, Charvarius Ward would take that on and make it really an alley fight. Mooney Man's not playing in this game, and he's got bigger things to worry about with the passing of his daughter, so hopefully he'll come back, maybe in Green Bay or Buffalo. But for this game, the Niners have those three great corners right now, and I put Ike Adam in that category, and the way Renardo Green is playing, and obviously Diamador Lenore, JD, with a contract extension, they're not going to follow anybody around, although Kyle did offer up in our interview this week that going into the last Thursday game against Seattle, always on Thursday night there, October the 10th, Charvarius couldn't play. He warmed up before, but he had a bad knee. He couldn't go. Demo said, I'll follow DK Metcalf around. I want that guy. So that's the kind of guy he is. But in Yadam and Green, and Green's not a big guy, but he plays bigger at 6 feet, 200 pounds, and Yadam does have the side. They're not going to match up with their receivers. And they got three really good ones. The young guy, Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think is the best. And I was talking to Jake Peets about him. Wow, he lines up everywhere. Where DK is the quintessential X, Tyler Lockett's been the F or the Z. They kind of move him around. Jackson Smith and Jigba can play anywhere. He is one of the best young wide receivers, so good yards after catch. So that's going to be the matchup we're going to highlight, and we're going to have Renardo Green in our pregame show as well. The three corners of the 49ers against those three great wide receivers of the Seahawks. So they'll probably lean on a little more today because the 49ers don't have George Fant, JD, or George Kittle. They have a lineman named George Fant as well. He's not playing, but Noah Fant, their very good tight end, is not playing as well for them.
And you got to think that this 49ers defensive front, or front seven, have to go off today, especially against the Seattle Seahawks, and they're beat up offensive line. This has got to be a big day in the trenches.
Yeah, they're gonna go at the new center. Connor Williams abruptly retired on Friday, and he's not having a very good year, but he's a veteran guy. Olawatimi is going to start for them. He's a young guy, second-year center out of Michigan, round 5 pick. He made one start last year. This year he's played, Dennis, 4 snaps. So when you have a raw center, and they like to play a lot of shotgun. Ryan Grubb is their offensive coordinator from the University of Washington. They're a college offense. You'll see them all looking over at the sideline for the play call. At least the 5 eligibles will. So they're in gun a lot. So this young center who's not played hardly at all this year, let's see where the Niners line up. Where they put somebody right over the head of him? Do they blitz a little more in the A-gap? They're going to try to go at this guy. They do have Abraham Lucas back at right tackle, and we'll see which side Nick goes to, whether it's Charles Cross, the left tackle, over the right tackle. And they got our friend Laken Tomlinson at left guard. He's a little older, but really strong. And will the Niners put Nick Bosa himself over the head of the center and try to challenge this guy that only has 4 snaps all year coming into the game today?
Greg, I know we got to let you run, but in terms of Eder Gross-Matos coming back, how big of an impact, an immediate impact?
Big. He's going to play, especially if Nick can't go the whole game. I think Yetur Gross-Matos is going to be huge. He's a good player. To me, he was the kind of the Cleveland Furl that the Niners lost late last year. Big-bodied edge center who could also go inside and play over a guard. Okawano can do that. They got other guys that can do that a little bit. Nick can do that. But Gross-Matos can really do that. And then just look in the early downs, the base downs, when you're in 1st and 10 situations. Who's that opposite end in the alpha group? Will it be Leonard Floyd, or might they start mixing in number 94, Yetur Gross-Matos?
Greg, have a great call. We will see you upstairs.
Thank you, boys. See you, JD.
Good deal there. Greg Papa will be on the call today with our guy Tim Ryan. Of course, coming up at 1:05, we'll hand it over to them in just a couple of minutes. Final thoughts on this one, guys. Look, I look at the spread for today's game, and it was a little bit bigger earlier in the week. It's down to 6 points. This feels to me like a game, and I think the Niners would need one. I'd love to see a game where the Niners get out early, hold on to a lead, put a team like Seattle away by 2 scores.
Yeah, I mean, get out early, and you said it, put it away. I mean, that's the key. I think the Seahawks come out. The Seahawks want to put points on the board fast, right? Get a nice lead. But it'd be great to see the Niners get a lead, keep a lead, and close the game in the second half.
Yeah, red zone offense. It's all about explosives too and turnovers. Explosives. They've had explosive plays on offense against Seattle. They've turned Seattle over, it's been the path to success against this team. It's why they've dominated these last few years. Look for that again today. I like him to cover as well.
I like that, but I'm also looking at Christian McCaffrey finding the end zone today. Again, didn't have a ton of red zone opportunities last week. Only 3 chances. They got 1 touchdown on that. It was a pass to George Kittle, who basically scored in every game he's played this season. Been one of the best, if not the best, tight end in all of football offensively. Had a big national tight end day and has been the #1 red zone target for Brock Purdy this season.
Also, Deebo Samuel tends to play very well against the Seattle Seahawks. Big ball in the first game. I think this could be a Deebo day too.
Do you anticipate any more handoffs to guys like J.P. Mason or Garendo? Because I'm not looking for a whole lot of that today. I don't think that's I think this is a Christian McCaffrey game. I think it's a Deebo Samuel game, and I'm looking for Jennings as maybe your lead receiver.
I'm with you on all of that. However, if you get up, that gives you an opportunity maybe to spread it around and try and keep Christian McCaffrey fresh.
It's like a 3-score game. I'm feeling pretty damn good about that, right? having some of the other guys back there. We will be back with you after the game. Greg Papa and Tim Ryan will take you up to and through kickoff, and make sure you stay tuned. The conversation, of course, with the head coach, Kyle Shanahan. They'll check in with Renardo Green as well. Still no Mooney Ward today, and Greg Papa just told us they were watching closely at Trent Williams warming up after Matt Mayoko told us he did walk in very slowly today, but he said that's just also kind of how he walks. He said he's a faster player than he is walker. So for the Super Bowl champion, Dennis Brown, for John Dickinson, thanks to our guy Kyle back in the studio. I know Raph was helping out as well. We will be back with you after the game, after they finish the network post game. We'll be back taking your calls and getting your reactions and thoughts on how this one went down. The Niners have won 6 consecutive games against the Seattle Seahawks. I'd say that's ownage for Brock Purdy against this team. There's some weak offensive line play for Seattle, so that's what the 49ers D-line is going to be looking at today. Christian McCaffrey back there. No George Kittle. We'll see how Trent Williams fares today as we hand it over to Greg Papa and Tim Ryan. It's the 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks Week 11 and a huge must-win tilt, and it's coming your way next, only here on The Sports Leader.